All right, here we are. Um, what are we doing? Open walk on panel? Yep. So exclamation point open in chat. Let you know. If this is an open walk on panel where audience members may participate. Audience members, yes, just like you, sitting at home looking at me right now, you may participate in this. Join the Discord server and go into the robot waiting room so that you can be let in on this Discord link for your convenience. Everyone, take advantage of this moment. Join up with us. Over here, over here. Join up with us. Be a part of this team that we're putting together of amazing streams. Like I said before, the quickest way to get on Twitch politics is literally through here. This is the fastest way to do it, right? Sometimes our good friend Dylan Burns poaches people who come on my open panel and brings them on his Heavy Duty podcast. Like seriously, a way to get on there is through here. So if you put in some work, have some amazing takes, an interesting person, you actually might be pulled up to the big time to the B2B podcast. Yeah, this is the place to do it. And to everyone else who's been enjoying this, hey, if you've loved this content, do me a favor. First, follow the channel if you haven't done so. Follow it right now. Hit the follow button, hit the notification bell so you know I'm going live. We come to you 6 days a week, 6 days a week with this content, 6 days a week. We bring you all of this, and this is a lot. Please help out the channel right now. Now's the time to do it. Now's the time to sub to the channel. $5 only takes $5 to sub to this channel. Free to sub to our YouTube, which we have right now. Exclamation point YouTube in chat. To let you know about that YouTube channel and how you can get it where we're posting clips. But $5 to sub to this channel, and keep it alive, keep all this alive. I need your help. Cannot do this without you. Can't do this without your support. So take the time right now to sub to the channel right this moment. Follow and sub. You can multi-month sub. We sub for 3 months, save 20%. Sub for 6 months, save 30%. Of course, you can use your prime time, Prime Gaming, your Twitch Prime on this channel to help us out. Okay. Ignore Joe, the silly series here. She's a bit salty. All right, you just ignore her in the chat. Ignore her. Ignore that woman in chat. Yes. Prime Gaming here on the channel. Then you can sub to the channel for free. Of course, when you sub to the channel, you get ad-free viewing. I forgot to play ads during the whole thing, but I'm going to play ads now. So if you want to avoid those ads, hey, subs to the channel. Beyond that, of course, you can donate bits, you can donate subs. You can also use our PayPal button below. Scroll down below, you have a PayPal button. Help us out there. We also have exclamation point donate in chat. If you want to donate through there. And of course, we have our Patreon, exclamation point, Patreon in chat. To get over there and let us know what you went from that audience. Yeah, if you want what you guys want from that Patreon, let's see if we can make something there that you quite enjoy. But it's another avenue to support the channel if you'd like to take advantage of that. So far, I think I only have one, literally one person who's supporting the Patreon. I have to check, but I think I literally have one. That's okay. We only launched it, last week. So, lots of ways to support the channel. If you could please actually do that. It would mean so much. I didn't say thank you to Fab White Boy for that 100 bits previously. Very much appreciate that. That's the way to keep this channel going and growing. All right, here's my spiel. Right, so we're gonna go into a walk-on panel. Going on to the walk-on panel right now, right this second. Walk-on panel. It's happening. For real. Jumping
the
in.
resident conservative is that it's hard to vote me off because then there's
if
no
they do,
discussion.
then it makes the stream.
Because you're in the lion's den, right? It's
Hell
a whole
yeah.
bunch of left-leaning people in here with one conservative, right?
It's true. I am a lion.
Right? So
I mean, you look more like a bunny rabbit to me, but sure.
I do have bunny ears that I could go put on.
Of course. Okay, so yeah, thanks all for being here. You're on stream in case you didn't know. I got a big fan of Joe for a second. 1 second. Okay. Yes and no. Okay, so thank you all for stopping by. Who do we have here? We have Drew back again. Nice. We have Fab. Hey, thanks for being around, Fab. Above you, I can't even see because I have to move my things around on my screen. We have Canadian Caller. Thanks for coming back. Nice to see you again. And next, Riverboat Jack, again, who you all erroneously voted only second place in the last one, but it is what it is. Next, of course, we have Ninetales, who is apparently being quite shy today with no cam. That's unfortunate, but
I'm working on it.
okay. And last but not least, we have Eagle Eye Valor, who's been working with me to make the YouTube happen. Our editor. So thank you, Eagle Eye Valor, for reaching out and putting those clips up online. It's actually quite a big help to do all that. So let's give a shout out to our friend Eagle Eye Valor, who also has a Twitch channel, right?
I do.
So there you go, Eagle Eye Valor. Everyone, help him out. Oh man. Okay. So, what do y'all want to talk about?
I'm just gonna say up front, I have to go in 15 minutes because something else is going on Twitch that I have to go help out with. But if you have like to scream at me, do it now. The time.
That's
is
what
nigh.
I want to do. That's what I want to do. I haven't got a chance to scream at a conservative in a while.
The time is now. So
Say some dumb shit so I can scream at you.
I see. The problem is I'm too smart for that. So like, it's hard to say dumb shit, right?
Okay. So
Drew, the only thing I want to scream at you about is how great your dog is.
All right, I'm getting a miss.
The only thing I want to scream at you about is how great your dog is.
I know, she's the best, isn't she?
So why? So actually, what I don't understand is what else on Twitch could possibly be more interesting than what's happening here. What is it? What is this nonsense, heretical?
So I'm friends with this streamer named Anna, and I had a conversation with Anna in Destiny a while back.
Oh my god, that's where I know you from. Holy shit.
That's me. And I load up Twitch and she's got over 100 viewers, and I'm like, oh fuck, what the fuck's going on? And so she's in front of the firing squad right now. So I'm gonna go talk with her for a bit.
Okay. Understood. Yeah. All right. Well, we are happy to have you here. We do love Anna. Anna's a friend here. Yeah. So, okay. What's on your minds, ladies and gentlemen? What's on your minds?
A piece of follow-up from the discussion. So, Drew, you said that if there was any evidence that there was any data that showed that conservatives had a higher propensity for paranoid thought than other groups, you would look into that. During that conversation, I sent you an abstract from a study that came out last June that talks about that specific thing. Have you had a chance to look at that abstract, and would you like to clarify or update your position?
Okay, so I have not, but to be clear, so paranoid thought, so let's see. Okay, so this isn't just paranoid thought, this is an ideological asymmetry and conspiratorial thinking. Okay, so I haven't had a chance to look at this study because because I was just on the panel, but this isn't actually just the abstract, so I can actually read through this entire study and get back to it. So let's see what the abstract says really quick. I'll read it really briefly, and then I'll see what it says really quick. Results revealed the
here, I'll post it in chat for anyone who didn't catch it the first time. If you guys want to weigh in.
Hey, Ninetales, thanks for being on.
Interesting. Okay, and so I obviously haven't read through this completely, but from briefly from this abstract, if this continues to be a pattern within the literature, then yeah, I would agree. I would have to look at like either more research literature on this particular topic to come to a conclusion, or like a meta-analysis or something like this, because this is obviously one data point. But if this is a pattern, then like I said, my only contention with this issue is that I like that these things are grounded rather than just like sniping back and forth at whatever particular side. It doesn't actually bother me whatever side this ends up on. I don't like conspiracy theories. So yeah, if it happens to be the right, then I'm not cool with that.
Paste. You're here. You're in the chat, so we can hear you. Just so you know. But thank you for coming through. But go ahead. You can respond,
I'm sorry,
Canadian.
I'm gonna have to push back a little bit on that. So my basic understanding, my apologies, I don't have a BA in this. I don't really know that much.
Oh, it seems my camera doesn't work.
Oh,
Sad.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah. We'll get back to you in a second. Go ahead, Canadian.
So like when it comes to like propensity for dogmatism, authoritarian beliefs, reliance on the state, all these things are qualities that throughout the years are common factors that we know tend to be associated with right-leaning people. So I don't understand how this is such a huge leap from your perspective. This isn't a gotcha. Like genuine question.
So to be clear, all I said was that I need to see the data for it. I'm not saying like, okay, so it's like, here's my issue. When I'm talking to people, basically what happens, regardless of what side I'm talking to, usually what happens is say, yeah, but the other side does it more. And all I'm saying is that I want to see, if that's your claim, I want to see data to back it up. That's all I'm saying. And if the data shows that, then I'm fine. There's nothing really to push back on. I don't like extremism or misinformation or conspiracy theories. I just push back on this generally speaking, because usually people don't actually ground this in anything. If you're a particular person that actually has grounded this in data, then good for you. I'm happy to look at any data you provide me.
Are you familiar with the Professor Delforth? She's a professor of psychology out of Carleton University in Canada.
I'm not.
Okay, well, I'm going to leave it there and just leave you to research, man.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
It's worth noting that the right doesn't necessarily need you to push back on it. It's either a factual statement or something that they need to defend themselves against because it's true. And the more you defend against it, the more it seems like it's something that you're just afraid of being true.
No.
Like also you could do the same. You could hold yourself to the same standard and supply data that counters this preemptively instead of waiting for somebody else to do the first step.
I mean, maybe literally all I'm saying is that I want people to provide data for their claims. I'm not like I said.
What's funny is I thought that this wasn't what a reactionary was to begin with, because this is what right wingers do. They just react very suddenly to information they don't like, and then they ask the demand from the left that they provide data. It's like, well, you can do the same thing. Just you hold yourself to the same standard, please.
Oh, but yeah. So to be clear, if I make a positive claim about something, I'll always provide data to support it. All I'm saying is if you make a positive claim about something, then support it. That's all I'm saying.
So what basis do you have for denying it? I'm just curious.
Well, like I just said, providing data for a positive claim is not the same thing as denying something.
Sure, but how are you sure that you even have a basis to deny this? That's all I'm asking.
Well, if I don't have evidence for a claim, generally I don't adopt the claim. So if someone wants to provide me evidence, I'm happy to consider it. So, and I think I've demonstrated with my conversation that I just had and with Canadian Caller that I'm willing to consider my side being more responsible. I'm perfectly comfortable saying that the right is more responsible for conspiracy theories if that's what the data shows.
Okay.
And to Bruce's earlier point, and like I'm trying to be real charitable to him because he did seem like pretty good faith, except for the college thing. But let's stick on topic. The idea that there's in-group biases and people will tend to favor their side and see the good in that and see like the absolute worst part in their opponent is a pretty undeniable like fact about how humans behave. So I can see him making that claim and like inferring the latter from that. So that's why I'm not pushing hard on that, because I'm not trying to like throw him in gotchas. I'm literally just trying to have an honest conversation.
Yeah, and so that's all I'm really talking about. Because usually what happens is if people are right about this, they're usually right about it by accident, not because they've looked into it data-wise. I appreciate that you've actually looked into this data-wise, and I'm happy to consider it. I always make sure, because my concern is like, look, just provide data for what you're claiming. That's fine. Like, and if it turns out the data supports your position, I'm fine with that. I don't think it's going to be equally proportionate in terms of which side has conspiracy theories. It's probably going to be the case that one side has more than the other.
Well, and especially in a debate format, like be able to back up your claims as
Yeah.
best you can, you know?
Yeah. And like I said, like, I mean, if I was making positive claims about that particular thing, I would have data to back it up. I have an entire Google Keep with like mountains of citations about whatever particular claim I'm going to make. So it's not like a standard I'm holding other people to that I wouldn't hold myself to. It's a standard.
Keep in mind, not all data is created equally.
Sure. Yeah. That's what.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of the reason that I was talking to, like I said, I gave the caveat that I need to like actually read through the study, and like I would like to see more than one data point, maybe a meta-analysis. That's this type of stuff. Yeah, so like I fully understand as well.
Well, Mr. Big Brain Data Man, what is the point you're disputing? I can get you some good stuff on basically anything.
Oh, well, I've already been provided a little bit of data on it.
There's a point you're forgetting.
Yeah,
Like
can I just
there
point
is a
out-
lot of debate amongst academicians too. So sometimes you will have some things that will follow your claim and denied, like the studies that doesn't follow the other people's claims. So you also have to check what are like the counter studies and those kind of things, and generally you don't necessarily have the time on those things. So that's also another problem. Like you can't expect everybody to know everything about anything, especially when academicians are already fighting about it.
Yeah, and that's
Well,
why I really like meta-analyses, because at least in that sense you can look at a myriad of evidence rather than just one particular data point.
Dr. K, and then Ninetales.
Yeah. Well, on top of that, keep in mind as well that manufactured consent is like a thing that's constantly happening in the background, right? And that, you know, there are entire like think tanks, there's entire large groups set up specifically for the purpose of coming to a conclusion and then essentially creating the data necessary to support their conclusion while not taking in a more totalistic framework.
Like
True.
most
Like
of the
that-
great
that-
idea.
That's
Most of the great
definitely
ideas.
true.
Oh, sorry. I'm letting you talk.
Um,
I'm letting you talk. I will have my point after that.
Okay, yeah. I mean, like that. While that's true, I think it is like kind of. I think it is kind of flying in the face of like a pretty basic like and pretty reasonable like desire to have something substantiated. I can't talk today.
Substantiated,
When
yeah.
substantiated when they're like making a claim to you. And I think like while it's true that we have all of this data floating around that has been twisted a little bit by or quite a bit by
Oh, there's a lot of bad data out there, mate.
there's bad data out there, but I don't think it's like this asking for like evidence for your claim is necessarily like some sort of bad faith endeavor. You know?
No, of course
No,
not.
no.
I'm just
I
saying, like,
never said
keep
that.
in mind that there's plenty of data out there that is basically built to lead you to wrong conclusions.
Yeah,
And
can
we
have
also
that.
have to-
And most of the ideas that can spread, or like the history facts that can spread, are generally as strong as the media that spread them. And
and it's
now,
manufactured consent,
especially in the US, like exactly. And so most of the time, like the right-wing medias in the US are pretty strong. Educations is also like another types. I will consider it the media for the sake of argument, but it's also like organizing like how people will think too. So for example, in the US, when you talk about the Chud, all he knows about the communism, for example, will be like what he heard from the bullshit he could have heard either from Russia or China or whatever else. And there are also other experiments that they have never heard about. So it's quite often on our different stream, I guess, we're like having like eye opener, and they have like a cognitive dissonance with like what we're telling them.
I mean, ideology is one thing, sure, but I was more specifically when I was thinking about this, I was thinking of the studies Shell Oil put out about climate change for decades and decades,
Or big
and like
tobacco.
Koch brothers, you
And
know,
it
that
works
kind
with
of stuff.
everything.
Yeah, so like I also think
PragerU
like
is technically something you can cite for data, but it's really bad data if you're going to be using it as a citation for
That's
a data.
terrible data.
Very
Cite
true.
the Prager
I
YouTube
actually
video.
I actually have to run, guys. I'm so sorry. This
See
thing
ya.
just came up. I will be here whenever you invite me, Prime. I really appreciate the invite. I had a great time with y'all and you and Jack. So I'll see y'all next time. All right.
Thank
Take
you
care, dude.
Bye.
for being here.
Bye, Keemstar.
Keeps.
I just want to thank Dr. K for going to talk
wow.
over me every time I went to take my turn.
Go ahead.
He looks like Keemstar.
Go ahead, Ninetales. And then I have another topic for us if you guys want.
Okay, yeah. I think a lot of you just played into that person's hand. Data seeking can be like an infinite ruse for these people, where like you can just be like, okay, well here's some data I found, and then they can just say why it's not good enough for them, and then you just keep on trying to find better data for them. I think it's there's no winning with somebody who just doesn't want to hear this truth, and like maybe they are in good faith in this sense and won't do what I just said, but I think we also lose by not pointing out the more obvious signs, like the right is intellectually void in a lot of political issues, and because of that, they thrive off of conspiracy theories, where the left does not, because the leftist conspiracy theorists would just not fit in with the rest of the leftist crowd. It empowers the right to have these people associated with them because they're more politically they're easier to mobilize politically. So the right has far more incentive to even just like bring in conspiracy theorists, let alone a right-leaning person has plenty of reason to be a conspiracy theorist, because it alleviates them the burden of being factual.
I don't
So are
even
you trying to
necessarily
say-
disagree, but there's way better ways you could frame this.
But are you trying to say that like Drew was being like
Yeah, Drew
dishonest
is
about his
in good faith
positions, or like bad faith about it?
No, I'm saying
'Cause,
that
like-
if we do this thing where it's like, oh, this person demands data, now I'm just going to keep on doing data. As a whole, we're just going to lose out on the opportunity to point out that you can intuit this as well. You don't just need data to make this clear.
Well, yeah, like
But
I think there are a
there-
lot of situations in which like you like people are acting in bad faith. I don't like the idea though that we just assume that other people are acting in bad faith. and
Yeah,
that
I'm
we-
not
Mhm.
I'm not implying that. I'm implying that
said
it's
that we
very
played
easy
into
for
his
us
hand. You
to
said that we played
waste-
into his hand.
I
we-
should have said the conservatives' hand.
Right.
That I guess that was like something
Yeah.
I should have thought through. But yeah, it is playing into their hand to like waste time on something that could ultimately be a distraction. As far as convincing one person goes, though, that's fine. I wish we were a little bit more creative with pointing out like, okay, well, there's data, but there's also like just reasons you can acknowledge from an outside point of view for why conservative right-leaning people would condone or like enjoy conspiracy theories.
Go ahead, Dr.
First
Head.
of all, yeah, there's conspiracy theory
Holy
coming
shit,
from
my
almost
internet was
every
crashing.
country right now. I had the luck to compare what's happening like in France and in USA, because I'm French and I live in the US, and I can say like there is like something that is very different in the USA is that you will have academics that will actually be QAnon and things like that. So there are people who are like Dennis Prager, for example. We don't have those kind of things in our country. So I feel like it's easier when you have like some people who will represent the authority, and when you have like a major party like the GOP who are actually delving themselves into QAnon theory to actually have those conspiracies spreading. And this is actually typical from like far right-wing movements. We had that with the Bonapartists in France during the 19th century, when their motto, like their strategy, was basically to create confusions with amongst the electors in order to get voices, creating scapegoats and these kind of things. And they are all schemes that you see in the US that are actually making all the debates really bad.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Dr. K.
Yeah, the number one cure then, if you think someone is operating, at least from my own experience, is essentially you remember what the original point, what the main thing you're talking about is, and you make sure that it doesn't drift from that. As long as you can keep things focused and you don't let yourself spiral into whatever conspiracy or the side idea that they're trying to plug in here. As long as you can keep the conversation narrowly focused on what you're trying to discuss, then you can actually get some productive stuff done. If you let whoever is your opposition in this situation control the conversation, you let them control the rhetoric and the information as well that is introduced, right? And this is pretty standard, like how to win a debate type stuff.
Sure.
And
I can't
also-
tell if I'm just not describing my position well clearly enough, or if like it's just like people's tendency to essentialize what I'm saying. But I'm not saying that you're wrong for necessarily engaging that way. What I'm saying is that when someone does, it works better as a distraction and as a way to get you like
I don't even
when we just
disagree
finish
with you on
at
that.
when we just finish at, well, I can't provide you any data, so I guess that's all there is to it. Then we're handing them a bit of a victory, because there are other things you can do other than data.
Well, I think then you should probably just reframe it into, hey, well, like this is something I had to do at work, instead of saying, well, I can't do that. Say, well, I can, I'm going to look at, I'll look into it. Don't promise that you'll do it, but maybe, I'll look into it later. Hey, I can provide you that data later, or something like that.
And even something small is generally good to have on hand. But there are cases where there will be like a relative void of data. You know, the
Well,
best
exactly,
example
like-
are things that occurred very, very recently, and thus there
Yes.
hasn't been time to do, you know, actual empirical data on stuff like
An
that.
example exactly is like, are there more conspiracy theorists on the right or on the left? Well, I would say there's more conspiracy theorists on the right. My data would be 76 million people voting for somebody who said that the election was stolen before the votes even came in. I think that that's, you know, pretty indicative of the people who voted
Yeah,
for
yeah,
him,
even like
thought
small
patterns.
data like that can be useful.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
did they
even though I
really
don't have a
vote for
survey
him
to cite it.
before he said the
Mhm.
election was stolen? Did
Yeah,
he
don't-
say the
don't-
election
don't
was
let
stolen
yourself-
after
don't-
the votes were
don't let
were
your-
cast?
He
your
said it was going to
feeds
be stolen.
Yep.
He
I mean,
basically
don't-
I mean, he said he was
foreshadowed it.
going to be stolen, but the whole
Yeah.
conspiracy about like the Dominion voting machines and all that nonsense that happened after the votes
that
were
was
being
always
counted.
the
Either
thing.
way.
That was
Yeah, but he
always
was
the
still
way.
saying
But
it. He
it's not
wasn't-
either way, right? You're saying that they voted for somebody who was touting a conspiracy, but he didn't.
Who was-
He was
Who was-
touting it
yeah.
well before
Trump
the
is
election.
very-
Metaphor, man.
After
Just go
people
back and
voted.
it's
Here,
really easy to Google.
even assuming you're right, Donald Trump is a regular proprietor of conspiracy
Yeah, I don't-
theories
I
to
don't
the
like Donald
extent that I
Trump.
don't have to bring up anything to prove that. Honestly,
I just
That's
don't like that,
common
that
knowledge.
example.
It
I
really
mean,
is common
point out
knowledge.
shit
He's
on
been
theory.
he was planting those seeds back in 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah. The man is a
mastermind,
grifter
Donald
and
Trump,
a
true
inspirer
genius.
for conspiracy theorists everywhere, and he
The
feeds
savant.
into it gleefully. That's not something that needs to be proven, you know.
Yeah, I agree with
I
that.
don't
That's
think-
not something that needs to be proven. If it does need to be proven, there's a problem with the person that needs to be proved that.
Well, I mean,
Well,
don't
that-
you
that's
what you
understand
have
generally
to
someone
realize-
who has
everything is
I said it
fallen
metaphor.
the
Yeah,
basis
that's
of
generally
having
someone who has
information
fallen
is being
into
able
the
to
personality
prove
cult
your
rabbit hole.
points.
Go ahead, Nine Tails. You can respond. And Metaphor, take over for me for a quick second, please.
All right, well,
Oh shit!
Yeah,
all right,
Metaphor, I
don't
don't-
say anything bad about Trump now.
Yeah, okay,
all
can I
right?
go?
No, like
Metaphor
Like-
strain.
there
Like
were
seriously,
points that I
everyone just
don't,
said that I should be at, like, Prime just said I'm gonna. I
Yeah,
get to respond.
Nine Tails, go.
So, like, do you not?
There's a point. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, like, I don't think if you give and like, I don't think anyone was saying that he's smart or anything like that. I'm saying he had the power to perpetuate these things. So he's not a savant. He's not a strategist. He's somebody who exploited their position of power and their ability to, like, use the presidential megaphone. So I don't know. I think that was a bad interpretation of what people were saying there.
I
Uh,
don't think
like,
anyone. I don't
the,
think
like, the,
anyone
power to,
would
like,
phrase. I don't think
manipulate.
anyone would phrase that Donald Trump was like a mastermind. I don't think it. I don't
Yeah,
think
Oh,
it. I
that's
don't
just
think
how
it-
Metaphor took it.
Yeah, I guess, but like it doesn't take like a huge mega brain to be like, if I say now that if I don't win, it's gonna be rigged a month before the election, then if I don't win, then my supporters are gonna believe that. It doesn't take more than 2 brain cells to say that, but just like I don't think anyone is trying to frame Trump as some brilliant like
I was being
political
hyperbolic.
mastermind.
Yeah.
The idea that he was like,
Yeah, I was not
incepting this
thinking he was
idea from
brilliant by
what-
saying it was a strategy that they would usually use on his side. Like the far right movement all over the world are using conspiracy theory. It's a known fact. That doesn't mean that they have like a monopoly of conspiracy theory. There are also conspiracy theory on the left. Like in France, we have a guy called Soral who are basically giving like a conspiracy theory on daily basis since like 20 years. We have other guys before him, and there were other guys before him. It's well documented. It's something that we already know from like the 1850s. You all know the word chauvinist. Chauvinist comes from the guy called Chauvin. He was already doing that. There is another guy called Boulanger who were doing the same thing in the 19th century. And basically, it's just following the strategies that this group were doing. And you don't really have to be a big brain to actually follow like the strategies that they were using for like years.
Yeah.
So nobody's saying he's a strategist, but he's like a definite provider of bullshit, and it's like actually a way to recognize a dog whistle from the far right to actually willingly spreading conspiracy theory.
Yeah, and I don't want to get
then I
anyone
might drop.
listening. Right. I don't want anyone listening to get the impression that QAnon is just like all righties or something like that. Like you get like the holistic health people who are into crystals and you know shamanism and stuff, and they call themselves a leftist. They have no idea
The
about
far
leftist
right
theory.
people.
But they're not far right. they do not espouse any right ideology or conservative ideology.
they
And
don't
if you
understand that
press
they're
them
far
on
right. They
things,
are far right.
no, if you press them
They
on
are.
things, they might come out being a progressive, but they just have no actual foundation of how the real world works. So they're just as impressionable as any right-wing person. And for them, like, they want to see, they want to fix the world, but they have no idea how the left actually
you're not
fixes
talking
anything.
about someone. Here's the issue. You're not.
I'm talking about
someone
somebody who's like
fallen-
ideologically
Nine, here.
progressive. Yeah, could I just finish? What I'm talking about? Someone who's
like
ideologically
You're
progressive.
putting in
Hey, one person at a
data.
time. Okay.
Yeah, if I could just finish. I'm talking about someone who's ideologically progressive, but is still susceptible to these conspiracy theories because they're not enough, like they don't have enough leftist understanding to like actually like take
Not
that
even
for that progressivism to mean anything.
And it's
You're talking about people that sorry.
No, it's all right. It's just, you know, if you fall down that sort of rabbit hole and you aren't already right wing, obviously, you know, it's going to indoctrinate you. It's going to, you know, teach you the dog whistles and later on teach you the worst things, right? And if someone is falling down that rabbit hole not because they're already right wing, that means that they're doing it because they are fundamentally a very impressionable person, right? So there's not really sort of an ideological foundation sort of grounding them in any particular, you know, tradition or idea. So
Well, it would
yeah,
help
like
if they had that, I would
impressionable people exist within essentially every movement. You know, you attract them like flies. So that's kind of an irrelevant population, I would say, to examine for the underlying ideological, you know, noise of a movement.
Although
Bye, everybody.
I was about something to say similar. Like you can't discuss an ideology by looking at the people who are ideologically weak and not understanding what's actually philosophically sound. Because otherwise they will not believe in fucking stones, fucking like crop circles, or these kind of things. There were like an experiment that was made by the French YouTuber once again, where they create their own crop circle. They made a video on how they created their crop circle, and then they started to film the people who are coming, telling them like, oh, so look at all this energy and these kind of things. Those people are like impressionable. You can't judge like like what they're saying, or like you can't judge their political theory because they're just
yeah, you have to judge it by their
Okay,
strongest
I would like to respond.
ideological heads, not their weakest ones.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm every time I go to use the no true Scotsman fallacy on somebody else, I feel like I get it wrong. So I may be getting this wrong, but I think you're doing something equivalent to a no true Scotsman fallacy, because like in the end, people don't necessarily need to like know an ideology completely to be a part of it. Somebody can just like acknowledge that, yes, I like progressive values, and then you can label them a progressive because they, you know, just something about their affect makes them choose progressive values over conservative ones. And I'm just saying progressive values to be as broad in general as possible, not like get into semantics. But overall, I don't think that there's like no data to be gleaned when you have people who, when you have the acknowledgement that someone can be progressive and still fall into QAnon, it's really more like I just think it's better. Like people are less, I think it's interesting that people are less likely to enter those sort of conspiracy theories when they have a more applicable framework of how to view politics. And I think like that is the biggest thing about QAnon, and also what conservatism and right-wing ideology persists is like it's a framework, and it seems applicable if like you're convinced by it, but you can't actually like go and apply it anywhere to the world without having those consequences come back at you. So these people, like, they literally shut themselves off from reality to avoid the fact that like you know, a lot of conservative and right-wing positions are inconsistent, like economically and stuff like that.
I mean, it makes sense that it makes sense that if you're going to prey upon a people and get them into conspiratorial thinking, right, you're going to prey upon the people who are part of the ideological, you know, the sort of mental hegemony, right? The people whose ideas are the most mainstream and have never essentially been challenged, because, you know, it's those who never have had to critically think about their ideas that, you know, when pressed on it, can begin to be chipped away at, essentially, right? Like, You know, you're talking about blob ideology, hegemonic ideology, and then, you know, chipping away at that into something a bit more underhanded to sort of push a bunk solution to a problem instead of offering something more substantive. And because they've never had to think about a solution to that problem, they're more likely to just go ahead and say, yeah, sure, that seems viable. Yeah.
So if I could propose something different here, right? So we're talking about how like conspiracy theories, right, are predominantly on the right, right? Because we're talking about them from our perspective, right? Or well, from the perspective of the left, right? And I want to propose like an idea, right? So with me, I do like a lot of COVID shit, as everyone's kind of aware, right? And something that I've come to the conclusion of, right, is that people on the right, or like people who are like against COVID-19, who don't think it's a hoax, like to push, you know, like hydrochloroquine and all this shit, right? They're only like framed as like less educated, right? Because they're not on that side that's like the correct side of like science and like, you know, the facts and everything, right? And from like what I've understood, like from like what I've gained from like a lot of this understanding is that like the people that are like a majority of people are on like on the left, or like people who are like for vaccinations, like for social distancing and stuff, right? They're just as ignorant of the reason why they're for it as opposed to people who are against it, right? And I think I think like when we kind of talk about these things, we kind of miss that point, right? Because we're on the side.
No, you're 100% right.
Right. And we're on the side of like, you know, the correct side or whatever, right? Of like you know, facts and logic and all that stuff, right? But we never like question ourselves internally, intrinsically about like why we believe these things, right?
Yeah, they stumble into victory.
You talk about these things in regards to like, especially when it comes like QAnon, it comes like conspiracy theories, right? You need to realize that they have like different like streams of information that they're gathering from, right? So it's like when you approach these problems as if like they're like idiots, or like you're like a higher like intellect, or you have a bigger like wrinklier brain, right? You kind of like miss the whole point of like why
that's not what I'm implying at all.
Royal kind of thought process, you know.
It's actually not random. Like when you think about it, like they honestly, one side has always been like trying to quote the Bible to prove everything that they fundamentally believe, whereas the other side has been like the left side has always been in the position where more data would help us. The trans athletes debate is actually a perfect example, because you have a bunch of people who are like, oh, this seems bad to me, this disgusts me, I'm going to have a visceral response, and then each year more and more data comes out, and the left gets better and better at arguing this point. So I think all along, like progressivism has always like, it started off with a lack of data, and that's what made like conservatism and right-wing ideology so prevalent in like developing nations. But now we're seeing developing at the time, but now we see that like as more and more data comes out, it becomes easier and easier to substantiate the leftist position instead of just like having more ideological debates.
Yeah, and I also think something going back to something you said earlier, Nighttail, it's like
well, let Dr. K go. She's had her hand up for a while.
Hop in here and then
I'm sorry, but that's so conservatism is more popular in developing countries because they have less. No, that's
I didn't say in developing countries. I said when the developed countries were developing and we weren't like operating off of empirical data, the conservative side was more appealing because, you know, it was harder to make a
this is a
progressive argument.
fallacy. You have no proof on that. You're making a point out of like an opinion. That you have.
There's
it's an analysis. It's not a fallacy.
That's not true.
No, that's
analysis.
No, that's
conservatism wasn't innately
but
more.
Your analysis is wrong.
Here, man.
An analysis of the fact that
I mean, but you
conservatism
can't
is
say that the
anti-Semitism?
analysis is
Like, my
wrong,
God.
right?
Right,
Because that if she's
so,
stating an analysis based on like anecdotal experience and or
all right, I guess I'll go fuck
data,
myself.
then like
Exactly.
you can't say that it's wrong. You can say that it's you could consider it to be a fallacy because it's anecdotal data, but you cannot say it's
Let's
wrong.
go, Dr. K.
Yeah, Dr. K.
Yeah, all right. So, jeez. So this idea, no. One, conservatism was not, innately more popular that it was back then than it is right now. In fact, in the 80s we had the whole Reagan Revolution where there was an upswing in conservative thought, right? And we're still living in the fallout of sort of that period in the 80s. So no, conservatism is actually at its most popular that it's been in actually quite some time.
My contention isn't about his
on-
popularity, right? My
Well,
contention is
that's
about
a side thing.
Let's
That's a
let the game
side thing. I
finish.
don't fucking care.
Okay.
I
I'm
want to
gonna
get to
shut
the
up.
meat and potatoes of this, right? Right. So the real shit right here is that essentially what we're again. I'm not saying that these people are dumb for being right wing. Clearly not, right? Much as you aren't dumb for being liberal, right? You are simply operating under a cultural hegemony, right? Intellectual hegemony,
Exactly.
where
Antonio
these are
Gramsci,
yeah,
exactly.
these are
Like,
here.
let's
Let
not
me
get
finish,
this,
dude.
bro.
Don't
Chill.
all right, shut the fuck up. I love you. Shut
Yeah,
the
and
fuck
I'd
up.
like to respond if
All right,
anything.
no. All y'all shut the fuck up. I'm not cool.
Yeah, I'm saying I'd like to respond. Go ahead.
Excellent, right? So you have to keep in mind that there's always this sort of intellectual, this sort of cultural miasma that sort of surrounds you, right? As sort of the intellectual default sort of that exists within the area you exist in. And most people are going to fall into that because they it's not that they're dumb or that they're smart, it's that they just don't have a reason to critically think about the ideas that exist around them, right? And so they're falling into essentially what is popular, not what is necessarily right or true, right? And just because what is popular also happens to be true doesn't necessarily mean that they have critically thought about how that they got to that point. Like Feline is actually 100% correct on that point, right?
Right.
What needs to be encouraged, what we need to be getting to, is the point where the cultural miasma, this sort of background idea, is this sort of critical thinking, this analysis. I've been having salsa. My throat is so dry.
It's water.
If I
It's
could
water.
respond.
But yeah, like critically thinking things through and using empirical data. The goal is to get that to be the cultural hegemony, to get that to be the baseline, the miasma that surrounds us.
So
Yeah,
what,
but I think
what I was originally alluding
I got
to.
to substantiate this, right?
Yeah,
So,
could
like,
I?
this is what I believe is the reason
Cool,
why,
Jane.
like, the left fails to convince like people on the right, they're like conspiracy theory, like to like of their thinking, right? Because they're not like trying to convince them from a place of like, this is why I believe this because it's well-sourced information that I researched and I looked into. It's more of, this is what I believe because this is what everyone else believes, and you should believe this because it's the right thing to believe.
And
right?
exactly,
But,
and then you get the immune response, right?
Right.
Yeah, you both agree
no,
on that.
this is my cultural hegemony. This is your
Right.
cultural hegemony. My cultural hegemony is correct. And
Right.
then when you come at it from that angle, you get an immune response where it's like, no, your cultural hegemony is not correct, and you
Right.
bump heads, and you get Twitch politics, and you go nowhere for an hour.
Right.
Love you, redneck.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
And then the
yep, still going.
all right, I'll
So
let go of
speaking
the
of
meat.
Twitch politics, I think
Could
it's
I
like a
quickly
good goal,
respond,
but
actually, 'cause I've been waiting so long to respond to Dr. K.
Sure, go ahead.
No, you talk all the time. Let him talk. He never started.
But like literally, that what Dr.
She
K
needs
was
to
saying was
respond.
Wait,
Yeah,
Top
pretty
White
good.
Boy has been waiting to
Okay.
respond since before I went upstairs to get my vape. Okay, like chill.
Yeah, I'm not saying that like if you're a conservative you're going to be dumb or anything like that. I'm saying that like if you look in the 60s before we were like sequencing genomes and stuff like that, it was unfortunately a lot easier for a racist to make the argument that there's some sort of like genetic component to like race differences, and we still had some scientific revelations at the time that proved otherwise, but they weren't as reliable as when we started like mass decoding the human genome and being able to publish it. So like I seriously think that you guys are just mishearing me. And what I'm trying to say is that the leftist position and the progressive position has just never been more tenable and viable. And the more tenable and viable that becomes, the more the right wing will become wrapped up in these games of like, either like demanding more and more information and holding us to a higher standard they don't even hold themselves to, and or just avoiding intellectualism as part of the rhetoric.
Yeah, you're both right. Feline and Nine are both right there.
But at the same time, he's looking to that through the prism of an American. Like there's a lot of other country where things would have been different at the same time. So if you look at France, for example, after the French Revolution, after the Commune of Paris, the leftists were really prominent. And at the end of World War II, for example, the Communist Party were doing 30%. That's how we ended up having like social security, free universities and things like that. So you had that in other countries like Portugal, where in 78 the Carnation Revolution was led by the students, and they had a really large leftist ideal. It's just that in the US it almost never happened, and when it happened, they had the Red Scare in the 20s and before, like in the 90s. But there were moments where the leftist ideas were actually popular in USA. It's just that it's not popular anymore. So when you are like pretending that there is like this immanent idea from the conservatism that will be more prominent in the US, you're actually forgetting what Antonio Gramsci was talking about, cultural hegemony, and forgetting that actually in the US, there are like a lot of people that are pro-Medicare, and they are never their voice heard because you only have the choice between right-wing and far right-wing.
Yo, Paste, are you a
Mic drop.
Gramsci guy too?
Yeah,
not a Gramsci guy too, but I know about him, so I know
that. I wasn't saying anything that was a function of their popularity. So like you're kind of responding to a straw man in a sense, but I am going to say that like, yeah, popularity doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with who has.
Are you the only one understanding your own words, or every time you have to re-explain yourself because nobody can understand you? So be precise.
Oh, I am. I can't necessarily force people to run something through their head twice. So, like, how people react to what I say is out of my control.
That's fun.
Wonderbar.
So,
So-
go ahead, Captain.
So, guys, going back to something that was said like an hour ago, so it feels like an eternity. I do think that the right has a lot better messaging than we do, and so when it comes to like things that we need to do on the left, I do think that we need to kind of be able to understand so the reason that hashtag Save the Children was so effective was that it reached across the aisle to rope people who are already like into conspiratorial thinking on the left into something on the right. So if you were like anti-vaccine and you saw this new hashtag Save the Children, you clicked on this and then you got roped into QAnon as well. I think we do need to understand it, and I do think it's a huge problem in this country. So like I think it's all well and good, like Dr. K, that we should be working towards a goal of having everybody be more empirical. Like we should be fact checking the things
Captain,
that we
hit
think.
upon exactly what I love so much, though. You hit upon perfectly what I love, right? So I love you, right? So this thing about you were anti-vaccine, and then because you were that was the leader that led you into the deeper thing that led you into the deeper thing, right? That is exactly what a good left-wing thinker, what a good left-wing whatever, right? And I'm not talking a liberal, I'm talking a left-wing, right? A good one should be aiming for, right? Is that, all right, you believe X or Y leftist position. Well, here's how you get to X thing, and you use that as a leader to talk about, the deeper problems and sort of, as soak them in like a bath, right? Like that.
Yeah,
that is exactly how you do it. Yes, that's how you change.
And I have no good answers.
Anything is you start from a point of reference that they agree with, and then you bring in from there.
Yeah, except like I'm not anti-vaccine. That's the problem. So like I just don't know where
So
the
anti-vaccine is the leader word for the right-wing conspiracy theory bullshit, right? Now you need to figure out what is the leader word for your ideas, right? And the everyone sort of universally, God, my throat, it agrees with, and then lead in from there.
I'm pretty politically reclined. I like to feel like I just like to. I believe in like pretty sensical shit is like what I like to believe. I think in
you believe in
like
cultural
liberal
hegemony.
politics.
Yeah, you're within the cultural miasma.
Yeah, and I guess like my question is, how do we convince somebody who is like a QAnon, not even a QAnon believer, but somebody who would be prone to believing in QAnon? If they already believe in QAnon, that's
someone
a different story.
Who's vulnerable to conspiracy theory.
You actually need to know what you're. So I can answer this. You actually need to know what you're actually going to convince them of, right? So like, as opposed to just telling them like, hey, like QAnon's a conspiracy theory because A, B, and C, right? You need to be able to substantiate that claim. You need to be like, it's crazy because A, B, and C because of X, Y, and Z, right? Like you actually need to be able to substantiate the things that you're telling them is crazy, Like, for example, if you're going to talk to somebody who is like anti-vax, right? You can't just tell them, hey, you should trust vaccines because anti-vax is crazy, right? Because believe it or not, a lot of the belief for like anti-vax, ideology is actually based in like real shit. Like, especially in relation, like when you talk about like some like shitty vaccines that were made back in like the fucking 1900s, right?
Tuskegee experiments.
There's like there's some real unethical shit, right? So like there's like a real like basis of like where their ideology comes from, but like the problem is like where it sprouts and where it goes. You know what I mean? And like you need to be able to understand that. You need to be able to substantiate that claims when you're talking to them. Because like if you don't, and like, you just say like, hey, your anti-vax is dumb, like you should trust vaccines, then guess what? You're just further pushing them into like the trenches of their ideology. You know?
And
Yeah,
like
no,
on
I
this,
do.
Go ahead.
and
Go
on
ahead.
this,
No, sorry, go ahead.
Hold on one
on this
second.
particular point,
Well, you go ahead. You finish your point, Canadian. Then we'll go to Nine Tails.
on this particular point and in general, I feel like if you know that you have the empirical ground, why would you cede it? Like I could have had that argument with him for days, and I knew I would have come out ahead on the data. I know the data proves my point. So why would I like refuse to
Tails,
engage like
it's your
that?
turn.
Okay.
Okay.
Who is that to?
Well, yeah. Anyways, I think we could potentially lose a lot by focusing too much on messaging. Like messaging is a component. It is something that would be nice to succeed at, but it's also something that if like we're holding ourselves to someone else's standards, then they can just change the standards endlessly. I also think that the left is always going to be on the disadvantage in this way because we're helping out minority groups. We're helping out groups that are typically ostracized by society. And so that puts us at disfavor with the majority who are typically complacent towards these things. Most people who grew up in like white suburban America don't want to believe that grandma is transphobic. But when when the left admits that like, grandma's inability to not dead name their own granddaughter is in itself transphobic, the people who want to see the best in their grandma are just not going to like that. And we're always going to be exposing things that this demographic doesn't like. And this is why they also tend to default towards conservatism, because conservatism doesn't like talking about these things. It wants to keep things like this way as a norm, and especially not talked about unless it's talked about how this is the way things should be. This is the way it's always been. Put your head back in the sand. So as far as being popular goes, I think that we are doing a balancing act between being popular and actually talking about things that are unpopular.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Paste.
Dr. K, I guess.
Okay, Dr. K then.
Yeah, all right. I mean, yeah. So like, if your job is if you are someone who is reinforcing sort of the cultural norms and entrenching the position of those who are already in power, the people in power like that, and so they're going to be giving you the money and the resources necessary to have like entire think tanks dedicated to messaging, right? Again, an super fucking easy example of this is the Koch brothers, right? They fund a vast array of fucking far right pundits, from Rush Limbaugh to PragerU, so on and so forth into fucking infinity, right? And so because there's a feedback loop there, right? Whereas for your more far left groups, you seek to essentially challenge those who are already entrenched in power. And so those who are entrenched in power essentially have no reason to give you any resources to challenge them, right? So yeah, to some extent, you are correct that a left-wing movement is always going to be on the back foot, at least when it comes to things like financial resources, right? But there are ways around that, I would say, and the traditionally most successful left-wing movements are the ones who essentially leaned on what other strengths that they did have, that being the capacity for mass movements, usually a friendly relationship with the intellectuals of a country, things like that, and levied that as sort of a way to counteract that situation. And so, if you're going to be successful, that's what to do, right? Like, the right wing does have problems. One, there's far fewer intellectuals that want to be associated with it, especially amongst the humanities, right?
I agree with what you're saying, but I would say that like when it comes to winning, that's politicking, and leftist politics are fine. Leftist politicians are fine. But when it comes to raising awareness about these things and not caring as much about winning, but just let me finish, and trying to make headway, then you're talking about leftist activism. So making those distinctions might help within like.
No. This is very applicable to activism.
I think an activist generally cares more about raising awareness and not keeping people silenced, because that's a losing position. Like this is what the LGBT community did to the T after Stonewall. They got rid of the T because they thought it was a losing position, and this is a documented thing. Like I can find this for you if you'd like.
Anyway, like there's some things that you're missing, and I think that's also something that you try to tell Nine Tails, like how you can convince people. Like there is like a real problem for the leftists that tends to be convinced by more like fact, and the affect is generally what leftist activists will try to show to other people, and not like even if sometimes we try to make them cry about the fact that there are homeless people everywhere, but generally we don't convince any people when we do that. So
but if we're going to talk about messaging, then we have a balancing act between messaging and data. You can't put all the data you possibly want into a message, because then you've made it too convoluted and no one's going to listen. A data has to be concise.
You don't want to be
I disagree that the left is primarily convinced about data.
Basically, I was saying okay, go for it.
No, go on. Pace hasn't finished. Please, Pace, finish.
Yeah, like I was about to lose my train of thought, but like basically what I wanted to say is like there's different way to convince people. You can resort like to feelings, you can resort to facts, but there's also lots of people who just go with the flow, with the status quo, and at the same time, how you can bring the knowledge to the people is actually kind of difficult when most of the medias are like in the hands of rich people that have a good that have incentive to give ideas from the right wing. It's actually then more difficult when all the status quo, all the cultural hegemony, as my friend on the top, Dr. K, was saying, that it's difficult like to live in that world and actually show your idea and convince people who mainly wants to go with the flow and the general ideas. So that's also something that we need to take into account, that there's also lots of people who don't know facts. So you always have to re-explain things, and then you look annoying because you always have to re-explain things that people doesn't know. Like I remember that guy when I was like 15 years old that always told to me about the fact that Cuba has doctors that they were sending all over the world, and we were like, yeah, Cuba, yeah, sure. Right now we have to take care of what we are doing right now, and now I'm that guy. So there's something like to say on that. Like even if you're from the left, even if you're convinced with things, it can take time for you to convince. So how you will convince someone from the other side? It's not impossible, but it's really hard. It takes time. And that's also something that we need to acknowledge, that it takes time to convince other people from the right wing.
So specifically, right, is if you are a true believer in basically any ideology, right, you are likely going to have the stance that your ideology, adopting it wherever you may be, would be a net benefit for everyone, except in the case of, genocidalist fascist types, where they believe everyone that they care about, right? So if you are a true believer in liberalism, conservatism, in left-wing ideology, right, in legitimate ideologies, you think that if your thing is adopted, it's good for everyone. So the issue is you don't explain how it is within your interests to adopt that ideology when you're, at least doing a one-to-one discussion. You have to explain how adopting your ideology is in the interest of that person, right? I talk to homeowners, right? And they say, why the fuck should we care about the homeless people in Los Angeles, right? Why should we give a fuck? And it's like, I don't say, I want to say because you should fucking care about your fellow humans, right? But, that's not going to get me anywhere. So what I say instead is this, I say, you like your streets clean, You like, being able to use the sidewalk, right? You like when there aren't discarded drugs on the sidewalk, yes. Well, that problem goes away when we invest heavily in public housing and guarantee a house for everyone, right? If everyone is housed, then there isn't a homeless problem to have an issue with in the first place, right? And it's better. This is going. If you have a cleaner neighborhood, your property value is going to go up. It's going to make you wealthy overall. It is a net positive for you as well to take care of these people, not just for me who believes that we should do it because, I'm not a fucking ridiculous person, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and just to
you have
agree
to
with
convince them why they should care, not why you care, if that
And
makes
to-
any sense.
Totally, 100%, and I totally agree with that, Dr. K. And as an example of that, in San Francisco, it costs around like $60,000 to $80,000 per homeless person that's in the city for the city, in terms of all the different costs associated
Exactly.
with that,
When your
whether it's
systems are failing,
incarceration
it's
costs,
expensive on you.
exactly, or whether it's any of the services that they might
True,
have. And so paying for the housing is actually around the same cost as you're paying anyway in all these other services. So it's just a net benefit for society, and it's the moral thing to do. It makes sense financially. I mean, it's just, so there's so many benefits that the reasoning against it is basically is either you don't understand the costs associated with this person being housed, or you just want to not understand that.
Go
That's
ahead,
just-
Ninetales.
Okay, so this is going to be a longer response. That's why I wanted to wait, and it is mostly for Kay. But I think the first 2 points don't necessarily need to be responded to, anyways. The first one being that, like, I mostly agree with what you're saying as far as like this is the reality of the situation. This is how things work, and I agree with that. The second point is a little bit of a sidestep. I probably am doing a false dichotomy when I say only an activist cares about these things, only a politician cares about winning. There are politicians who care about those things, and there are activists who care about winning. I just think that the activist has more incentive to care about what's actually going on and raising awareness and not keeping people's voices silent, which I'll get to in a second. Whereas the politician has every incentive to care about votes and numbers and winning. If you want to respond, go ahead.
Well, that's the thing, though, right? Is at the root of it, an activist and a politician are essentially the same
The same
thing, right?
person.
One having institutional
Exactly, it's the
power,
same person.
right? Is that well, here? I get that there is a knee-jerk reaction to that, right? But hear me out, right? Is
Sure.
what essentially what we're looking at is what are the goal, ideally at least, of these two groups, right? Is to take care of a group of constituents, right? That sort of exist around them, right? And so, sorry, someone added me. And so the goal of the politician and the goal of the activist should be the same. If they are not, that is a bad politician, and you need to get them out of there as fast as possible, right?
Okay,
And
I would
replace
agree
them
with
with someone whose goals are closer to that of someone who wants to improve the community that they are supposed to represent.
Right. I would agree with you on that premise. I would just say that you're like over essentializing things where like you can also make distinguishing points about.
Yes,
like,
they have different jobs.
okay.
and
Yeah.
incentive
just-
structures.
Can I make my? This was a multi-point thing, and I only got to my second point.
Yeah.
Lastly, I do want to point out that, like, first of all, what you said about being homeless really spoke to me. I think one of the big things that I noticed, and this might just be like a very personal thing for me, is that you did shift the rhetoric there as you made it more palatable for people. You turned it from talking about the homeless people and what they go through and how people should have compassion to talking about how the homeless people disbenefit you and you should feel good that they're no longer homeless, which I don't think is necessarily bad if that's what works. But what I am saying is that does take out of the rhetoric what the homeless person has to deal with. And this is probably why it's
Well,
easier.
that's the second step.
Okay. Well, yeah,
Like
I guess like
You
maybe
make,
I
you
am
make
more
it
of an activist
palatable
in
to
the
the
sense I
person, then
only
you lead them into the deeper conversation, which is
Yeah.
what I was referring to earlier.
So,
yeah,
like, if
see,
I
like maybe I'm more of an activist in this sense because I just really hate the idea that we're not talking about these things.
I am an
because we're
activist.
afraid. But like I mean purely, like I'm not a politician anyway, because I don't care if like talking about this makes the left look bad. I don't care if it makes us less palatable.
Well, then it's not going to get done.
Let me
though.
finish. Just the fact that people who are not homeless, who actually have the ability to have this voice talk about it, is why what homeless people go through hasn't been swept under the bus. And the moment we capitulate entirely to people's disdain for hearing that, we lose ground on behalf of those people that we're fighting for.
Yeah, that's why you go into it after you've softened them up to the concept.
But what if you
hearing
never
it.
do that? What if you've literally?
Well, then you're not going to get
Feline
it done.
Father wanted to talk. I think Feline Father wanted to talk.
If I could contextualize this real quick, right? So like the way that I've always looked in regards to like leftist ideology and right like liberal and like conservative ideology is like it boils down to this, right? People on the left are like super trusting of like officials and like experts almost to a fault, and then people on the right are hypercritical of people like to a fault, right? So like they'll like break down someone's argument and they'll what about this? What about this? What about this? Right? And like they'll always think there's like always something like to like identify in it, right? And then when it comes to the people on the left, like they're very trusting and very like accepting of like experts' opinions on things, and like you're willing to like espouse and like trust.
Ask a leftist about the FBI.
Yeah, you're referring to neolibs.
I don't know what the fuck that is. I have no idea what a neolib like tanky.
Yeah, just
I don't really understand what you mean when you're saying expert at this point.
Like for example, right? So like the idea of taking a vaccine, right? Like you trust that the people who produce the vaccine, the people who are telling you that you take the vaccine, are in your best interest, saying, "Hey, take the vaccine." Right? You obviously didn't do the research into the vaccine. You didn't do like not a virologist, microbiologist, right? But you're like, "Yep, I'm gonna take the vaccine," right? However,
no, actually, I do not trust like that.
Conservative ideology are like hypercritical of like vaccines. They're like, "Well, what is this? Like, why is this made with this? And what does this mean?"
No, it depends on the institution you're talking about.
Huh?
It depends on the institution you're talking about, right?
Right.
Is let's say like your average commie, they'll probably trust a scientist, right, or whatever. But like for example, they're not going to trust their local police department. I can't think of a single leftist who does.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, like more in regards
so
to like
it depends on the institution.
Right. I'm more
leftists
more
don't trust
like not like police action, but like more like of like policy or like things like these, right? Like they're more willing to like believe in an ideology and push it, but actually understanding the fundamental like grounds of like what the ideology is built on, or like what a movement is actually about, and like actually
Go ahead, Paste.
No, that varies for
Paste.
individuals.
I will make a last point before leaving, because like my wife is about to sleep, so I don't want to to upset her too much. She just knocked at the door. So basically, we're talking about the homeless people. I don't see how in hell it will make us look less palatable to actually care about our fellow human being. Like at the end of the day, we are humanists, and showing that we care will make all the way palatable. So you don't really need to change your ideology. But me, what I do when I have those kind of things like to talk about the homeless, generally I refer also like to what's happening in other countries like Norway, or any countries that come from a leftist environment, who generally build public housing.
Wow.
And they don't just build public housing, they also put public housing with social workers in order to have people having a better life like that. And it proves to work. Like they end up having a situation that is really low. And as what's his name, Captain A. Jones were saying, like the less homeless people you had, the less it will cost on money for the rest of the states. So it actually doesn't cost that much, because like the whole system without safety net is actually creating a bad situation. Same for low wages and things like that. The whole idea of the left actually come together to actually get rid of those problems of poverty and these kind of things. But the whole problem of the right wing is also that they believe better in charities and solidarity. They don't want to save the problems, they just want to feel good about it. So yeah, like you have that whole thing that we need to convince people that actually charity is not necessarily the best way to solve problem. And Crime Case had a debate like that recently on his channel. I don't remember exactly who are on the panel. It's not very important, where some people were actually advocating for charities mainly because it served their community for a long time historically, and it helped to build their community. And that's true. That was one of the great things that the Christians in the US managed to have, like that community together. But at the same time, they still have the same problem because the churches never solve those problems. So because now I started to talk about the church, I will just leave you because it's always a good point to get everybody fighting.
That
So
was
have
for
a good
me.
night.
Can I quickly
Yes.
My
respond?
channel is Go
That
Past
was
Tech
for me.
because I
Can I
don't have
just
the
quickly
same
say
name.
something?
Oh, I was arguing
No,
it
it
with
was not for
about
you.
Christianity for
Why are
like
you
an
always
hour
thinking it's
earlier.
for
I'm
you?
ready.
It's not always for you. It's for everybody.
I'm the
just
only
being
one
an
who said
ass.
the
That's
thing that
all.
you responded
I have
to.
the right to be an ass. I will
Oh,
leave you.
you're just
Thank you
being
very much for
evasive
having
then
me.
because I'm the only one who said the thing. You're just being
Yeah.
evasive because I'm the only one who said the thing that you responded to, but okay.
Okay. You can respond now if you want. I don't know.
I guess. Yeah, all I'm going to point out is that history bears out the opposite of what this person said. Generally, when progressives and leftists bring certain things to light, like that the majority of America is still racist, or that, like I said, grandma's transphobic, even though she seems to be operating from the best intentions, people reactively push back on that because it challenges their notion that things are okay. The left has been the people who generally raise awareness that things are not okay. They're not trusting of things at all. What Feline Father seems to be referring to is the centrist left, but also you got to realize that the left seems to be on average more scientifically literate, so they're also more likely to trust institutions that operate on empirical data. So it's
I'm
you
not
know
talking about like I'm not talking
it's
about like
less an appeal
researchers
to
or, like,
authority,
the,
like you put
intellectual elites. I'm talking about like the general public of like the left and the right of ideologies. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not talking
the
like,
general public is across the board is stupid. I love
Okay,
you,
well-
general public. Like, and
Chat.
this isn't a this.
Yeah, I wasn't
this,
talking
Yeah,
about
Chad,
religion.
this isn't a
Garland,
dig
the
at you.
public
I don't know where
We
elites
can't
came
all
into this,
research
though.
everything. And
Okay,
my
but
bad
Feline
is the
Father,
general
suck 'cause the
public.
public
I
Yeah,
can't research everything.
it's so hard to have it back and forth. But yeah, Feline Father, I don't know where the elites came into this. I was talking about the general public, and that, like, in
when you
general, like,
started, like, go in the
people who are
direction.
educated have a harder time maintaining conservative beliefs. There are conservatives who are educated and maintain their beliefs, but it seems like as people go through something like university, they find it difficult to not critically think their way out of certain conservative type beliefs or conservative adjacent beliefs.
So, you can respond to that if you want to, Feline Father.
Yeah, I mean that's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about generally speaking, right? Like people on the left are like willing to accept like policies, and they're willing to accept like things from like experts above them that they don't have the knowledge set of, right? Of saying like, yep, this is probably in my best interest, right? I believe in the whole of the community, and I believe in society is good and large, right? And then people on the right, right? Like that's why that's why I personally believe like why they're like super like predisposed to like go to conspiracy theories, right? Is like they're like hypercritical about everything to a fault, even if they don't know what they're questioning, right? Like you have like people on the right who are like oh, what the fuck is this shit in my vaccine, right? Or they're like, oh well, yeah, well, what does the government do this? Like, why are they doing this symbol, you know? And like they're just like questioning everything for like no reason, right?
So
Oh, okay. Sorry.
yeah, like, everyone
I thought
has
you're
that.
coming from a standpoint of individualism versus collectivism.
No,
more
I'm talking
so.
about like extremes.
Okay, my bad.
Everyone has like every ideology is going to have institutions that it's distrustful of. I think you are correct though in that essentially, U.S. and now quickly becoming globally right-wing thought is this sort of totality of distrust for essentially any governmental institution, and most corporate institutions as well. As crazy as that may seem, given who sponsors a lot of the right-wing content out there.
And I think it also comes down to, like the whole ideology of like people on the right are very like individual rights and like very like me, as opposed to like people on the left are like, okay, we, right? And that's why they're more willing to like accept
Yeah,
those
they're
around
French.
them that have the best intentions, like.
I think it's important to realize that a lot of this distrust is actually like rhetorical tricks to keep people guessing, who may not be as certain, because as institutions become more scientific and as they become less viable for outdated right-wing talking points to stay in the sphere, like marriage should only be between a man and a woman. They're reactively questioning these things because these institutions no longer reflect their beliefs.
So, I was thinking of trying another topic, but
please,
yeah, I figured not everyone could join in on this one.
We're just walking in a circle. Just kind of like, I don't know. We're just kind of going back.
I don't know. I feel like we haven't addressed the religion aspect of it in any meaningful way. At least not while I've been here.
You're about to,
That's
bro,
one of
you're about
those
to drag
I
us
know
into
it's a
an
can of worms, but
hour-long
it's fucking
circle jerk.
important.
Oh no.
No, that's a huge piece of this right wing thought that we seem to be like scared of. And it's like, it's really important to how right wing people think. The fucking guns, God, and whatever the fuck.
I'm not scared of it. It's just really hard to navigate without like essentializing or generalizing something. And it's certainly something you have to be like very well versed in religious politics to actually like talk about accurately. And so I'm fine talking about it from a distance, but then I acknowledge that I can only talk about it from a distance.
Well, yeah, I've been on the level of like fucking I was the atheist high schooler who would debate all the Christians. That's where I'm coming from, and so I'm used to addressing these things fucking head on. But if I'm the only one doing that, it doesn't really work. See,
I was the atheist high schooler in a high school full of
This is
atheists.
one of
so,
those
like,
drop it and
I was
leave it
not
alone
special.
things.
Sure.
Please.
It's just that we've had a lot of conversations on religion recently. Just a lot. Like
Exactly.
a lot.
Same as it ever was.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you get too much, it was gonna pop up in here. He's gonna like explode.
We literally had one last night. I don't remember
we
what
need
exactly.
Fnatic. We need someone call Fnatic if we're gonna have the religion discussion.
Yeah, nothing.
Yo, I want to get listen. I want to get Fnatic on here, and I want to ask him about the Pokemon question.
Can we never have Fnatic on here? Actually, that would be ideal.
Oh,
So-
I love Fnatic.
I want to find out what Pokemon he would
$50
eat.
is all it takes, Dr. K. Every show, every time he shows up, just give Prime $50.
I'm poor, thank you.
So,
That said, sub to
oh
Prime
man,
chat. You heard
Fnatic,
me.
it just happens. It actually is in chat. He's like, I'm here. I'm just waiting. Yeah, I see you, buddy. Oh man.
Yo, Fnatic, what Pokemon would you eat if you could eat any Pokemon?
Oh boy.
Cloyster. Now then.
Okay, but
Magic
anyway, so yeah, we don't have to do the we don't have to do religion thing unless Fnatic actually does want to come in and yell at someone.
No,
Oh my
no,
God.
If
Listen,
Fnatic did
I'm
want to
like
come in and
the
yell at
only
someone, I would know
leftist
that,
religious
but-
person on here.
I'm religious.
I
too.
really hate these conversations.
I'm religious and on the left, and I can have that.
Ah,
conversation.
okay,
It's just-
excellent.
it's-
So you and I can both leave together then.
I'm an atheist, and I hate this conversation.
I'm
I'm
side exercise, Dr.
agnostic.
K, I join your side.
I mean, it
I'm
it depends on the subject that the religion is involved in that I have
Yeah.
issues with where it would go towards. So that's all. But again, I would rather the different topic.
There
that
can
we
be some like really cringy alliances though, like you need to be a little bit careful with. Like you need to be really careful about the reasons that why someone doesn't like Islam and things like that. That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
You always need to ask why someone's bringing up Islam.
Who knows?
Yeah,
All
honestly,
right,
the
so
moment
Brian, you
someone
wanted to
tries
introduce a
make
new
Islam-
topic.
The moment someone tries to make Islam out to be like worse than Christianity, I'm like, this seems really biased.
We're
Just
not
like-
going to touch that, actually. All right, Brian, what's your new topic?
So, Virginia joins 15 other states in legalizing marijuana.
Epic.
Yeah. So, well, or at least it will. So, like, it's a little, it's kind of dumb. Anyway, it's passed the Virginia House and Senate, and the governor has stated he will sign it. So it's almost a done deal. But beyond that, also, it doesn't kick into 2024 because of reasons. But still, they're on their way. And so I guess what I want to ask is, do you all think that under a Biden administration, that we might finally get rid of take marijuana off the prescribed drug list, right? Get it off the Schedule 1 list at the very least. This reminds me of what's happening now. reminds me a lot about marriage equality. If you remember that fight in the States, it was,
I want to be able to marry my weed.
State. It was
sticky.
It was state after state after state that started doing this, right? Just like legalizing marriage between our gay and lesbian brothers and sisters, and eventually it kind of snowballed, and a case like worked its way, like while all this is happening, a case is working its way up to the Supreme Court, and I think very much partly because so many states had already done this, right? The federal government, the U.S. Supreme Court said, "All right, yeah, we're done with this," and this was great because I remember like the Republicans were so fucking relieved, right? Because they had lost the argument like long ago, right? But they had to pretend, right? Because of their going back to religion, their dumbass Christian evangelical base was demanding that they keep up with the bigoted nonsense. But so many Republicans didn't actually want to Republican politicians didn't want to fight on this anymore, right? It was just losing election. They would constantly being hammered about this. So when it finally came around, when it finally happened, they were ecstatic. So I'm curious, do you also see the same ingredients here, in which after so many states have done so, and possibly more. So possibly more can happen maybe this year and next year. Do you think within Biden's first 4 years, you think maybe we could actually have this happen? What do y'all think?
Yes.
I'm doubting it. Because there are a shitload of things that need to happen. Because we're pretty deep into weed being illegal still.
Go ahead, Dr. K.
They're well on their way. I mean, even before the Trump administration, they were well on their way to like decriminalizing it federally. So I think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I just wouldn't expect it to all happen at once federally, especially while it's still Schedule 1 over over cocaine and shit.
Like I said, it's well on its way. They've been working on like decriminalizing it federally, even under the Trump administration. So it's definitely going to happen under Biden, 100%.
Yeah, here's what I hope is going to happen: is I hope before.
I just feel like we're going to get fucked with. That's that's the thing. I feel like we keep getting fucked with weed.
Well, no, I think that the slow march of how our government works has been kind of working its progress. Like Prime said, Virginia is joining 15 other states. That means that it took there's 15 other states over the last. I mean, I've been smoking. I'm 31. I've been smoking weed for a long time, and I can tell you, in California, like we had legal weed for a long time, but now it's officially legal, and I think that like a really smart thing for the Democrats to do would be to legalize marijuana before the 2022 midterms. And I mean, I think that from the polling that I've seen, I don't have the numbers in front of me. It's a pretty well received issue by the American public.
As a person from Tennessee that hasn't been able to smoke weed in over a year, fuck everybody on here that has legalized weed.
Yeah, I think the what Prime was sort of getting at. I think what Prime was sort of getting at with sort of, especially with marriage equality, is sort of those streams or those sort of things that you see that led up to the legalization of marriage equality. I think for me, one of those big things that happened sort of at that arc of that storyline essentially was for marriage equality. Up until Biden, there was not a high-level federal official who came out in favor of marriage equality. Don't want to get in this debate about, he didn't support it in the elections, whatever, but he was the highest-ranking federal official to come out in support of it while he was in office. And you can draw a direct line from when he did that, then suddenly, like, the dominoes falling of the rest of the Democratic Party, finally everyone in the Democratic Party accepting that stance.
Yeah.
And I would sort of make the same idea that once a high-level Republican, especially in the Senate, because we need 60 senators. We need 60 senators in the Senate to do it, no matter what. Once a high-ranking Republican comes out in favor of it, very just like to the point, not with this weird nonsense on the other side, just like legalize marijuana, period, then we will, I think that's when the floodgates will open and it will happen. Until
Most
that point,
Republicans don't care about weed.
I know they don't care about it,
Most
but that's the
Republicans
thing.
just don't give a fuck.
But most
They'll
Democrats
care about the
also,
money it makes.
no, but also most Democrats also didn't
I mean,
care about
Ron
marriage
calls
equality.
for it.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like it's gonna come. It's just gonna like once it
Yeah,
comes
just
to the
hit the
floor.
Yeah, that's why it would be so
libertarian
easy.
strain.
It's like
Yeah, it's once it comes
this
to the
point,
floor,
like,
it'll
a lot
happen.
of
Once it comes to the
Republicans
floor,
agree.
it'll happen. It's just a matter of time
Mhm.
and the right Republican to come out in favor of
Okay.
it.
Anything else?
No.
All right.
You know, I
Hey
can't.
guys.
So,
How
hi.
you doing?
Hey, what's up, dude?
Hello.
Hola.
So I have many thoughts about this. One, Virginia is especially interesting given its proximity to DC, which I think is kind of neat. And I think that might be partially why it's hesitant, but also, you know, because it's got that quickly dying out but still pretty strong conservative stream that exists within the state.
Never smoked
But
weed in
here's what it's going to be legalized. I think Biden's a coward, but even he realizes, you know, the fucking writing on the wall, right? That he needs to, you know, get his ass in gear. My stipulation is this, right? Is that the people, and this is something that has to be done, either with or incredibly soon after, for the legalization of weed to be at all ethical and above board, right? Is the expungement of criminal records for people who are currently in jail for these exact reasons, right?
Yeah.
And because, you know, it's an absolute travesty, and even within states like my own where it is legal, right? You will have people getting essentially arrested on weed or related charges, right? While you have other people who are making an absolute killing off of selling the stuff, right? And I think that it's an absolute, you know, mockery, right? And on further on that note, right, is that, you know, if we are going to be expunging these records, if we are going to be making this legal, also we have to ensure that the right to sell it, right, is able to be accessible across the board, right? We don't want to create sort of a racialized market for, you know, who is able to sell it and things like that as well, right?
So one thing I do want to so you touch upon an interesting point, because the weed market, it as it stands right now,
It's very white.
Even I was actually going to say, even as it stands legally, so it's legal here in California, but there's still a black market, as it were, for marijuana.
Oh yeah, that shit is not going away.
We live in the Jones. You and I, we live in the same state. I know exactly the kind of stuff you're talking about. I'm very aware
You
of
guys
all
be
this.
neighbors.
We could be. I hope so.
So like what I'm actually like looking forward to is if we ever get to a point where we legalize all drugs. That's what I'm fucking looking forward to.
Oh yeah,
Amen.
If we're talking about weed legalization, let's talk about Oregon. If we have the chance to.
Whoever said that, no, you don't want
28th
all drugs.
Amendment
You don't
right
want
to
all
get
drugs
high.
be legal. I'll tell you from personal experience, man. You don't. This is one thing I could definitely touch on, man. I've tried everything from the only thing I don't touch is meth, and that's because I've fucking seen it. Right, like you don't want this shit to be legal, bro. Like that's
no, you do.
A lot of these
No.
man-made.
Well, that's not
No,
why.
absolutely not.
It's not.
Look,
Not
it's dangerous
necessarily.
for
It's
you.
we don't want it to be. It's we don't want people to be in prison.
In jail for it, right?
You don't want it to be criminalized.
Well, the way
Exactly.
you stop that is the way you
It's-
stop that, and part of the thing that I do in like my real life is educating younger people on like really educating them, not like going to fucking.
Well, you can't educate someone if it's illegal to
Please,
talk
please, let him
about
finish. Let him
facts
just finish.
related.
Let him finish his
it's
point.
not-
University.
It's absolutely not illegal to speak on the subject. You just can't be up there like if I'm, for instance, if I go to the YMCA tomorrow and start talking about like the kids about like, oh yeah, this is what I did when I was like, you know, running around on cocaine. Like no, but you can show the facts and you can educate kids on what actually happens with these drugs, man. Like I've seen people on meth fucking threaten to kill people, like women in the next room, like just because, right? Like it's not something you want around just because you don't want people going to prison. What you want is you want people to make the decisions that are smart and keep them away from that shit, right? You preferably like to shut the motherfuckers down that are making this shit because it's not natural, right? Like there's shrooms, weed, things like, I guess some things in nature they use with acid. There's certain more natural stuff, but then there's shit like meth, cocaine, crack.
Yeah, and your point is
PCP, speed. My point is that those things that are man-made are specifically man-made to keep people in like an economic situation, like the crack epidemic that happened in the 80s.
Yes,
that was
and
specifically put out there for the simple fact of keeping black people in neighborhoods.
Universe, though, please let me explain this.
Okay, fine.
Please.
Finish.
If
We gotta go to Nine Tails and Marcy afterwards. Go ahead.
If it is illegal to possess and all of that for that kind of substance, then people have a disincentive to seek treatment because they know if they seek treatment, they can get their ass booked, right? And we already have overflowing prison populations, right?
That's not how rehab works, man.
Not quite.
That's how that works.
You don't.
No,
know,
you have
don't
to be
go to
really,
prison
really
for
fucking stupid to get.
You don't go to prison for going to seek help, right? Like now, if you walk in with a fucking sack over your back like Santa Claus full of meth, yeah, they're gonna take you to jail. But if you walk in off the street going, "I want to get clean," they're not gonna book you into jail. That's not how that shit works.
Do you have proof for this?
Pretty much,
Yeah,
you
I've been
need to
doing it
have at
multiple
least one
times.
police officer convinced that you're selling drugs.
I've been to rehab. One of my goals in life is to reform how the rehabilitation system works everywhere. That's like one I would like to be able to do that. But the problem is we don't have enough people with a scientific background involved in this. So there's a lot of people that just like have a bunch of money that can afford to. Because basically, I could go, you could go, anybody here.
Yes,
could go,
I'm
buy a building
fairly
right
aware
now
of the
and start
system
a
around
rehab.
it.
Yeah. So like you
Yeah,
don't.
it's
like,
all
just
pay to
because
play
you
kind of
have
stuff,
an addiction. Addiction is now for like to me, it's a good thing that people are like realizing that this is actually a disease. It's not like yes, it is a choice to start doing drugs, but addiction in and of itself is a disease. And
Exactly.
yeah, but
And
you
we
don't
shouldn't
get you
be-
don't get booked into prison for going to a rehab and saying I want to get help. That is not how that shit
No,
works.
but if
So,
you are
nine-
not
nine-
possessing it, you
so-
are.
So Nine Tails.
Yeah.
Then Marcy.
Yeah, universe, I agree with you. It's a disease. I also agree with you that you don't want these things to become more common. But studies that I'm not particularly familiar with, but I've heard multiple experts talk about, have shown that by decriminalizing things for the users, and that's the key there, does make it less available in the streets. And why is it key that it's for the users? Because we're not decriminalizing it for the producers or the sellers, right? Those people are still committing an illegal act. Just because you've even here in Canada, we've made it legal, it's sold from stores, but because it's now sold from stores, it's you really don't want to get caught selling weed because the cops will actually do something, whereas before they were a little like more they're far less likely to do something. They might have tried to bust weed dealers in the park like once a year.
No.
But now
Look, I got it. No,
No, I'm telling you
I'm sorry.
from
You
personal
just
experience.
I'm telling you from like look.
I don't know why you're cutting me
cops
off.
back 10 years ago or 5 years ago before shit was legalized. They would take you to jail and you go to prison for like a dime sack. Like that is not how the transition has not been. Oh, now they are more harsh. No, they're absolutely not.
Go ahead, Nine
So
Tails.
the point is that we're taking the consequence away from the people who are victims, who are addicted with the disease, who literally they'll suffer if they get cut off anyway. So you do want to make these things available in a medical sense, but also like you're maintaining the consequences for the people who are actually distributing, who are doing the thing that you're worried about.
Okay, I'll go ahead, Marcy, then Eagle Law.
Cool. It's good to see you again, Prime. Good to be back. So in the course of this talking, if I've looked kind of like distracted, it's because I've been looking up studies, like kind of empirical evidence to help us kind of come to a conclusion here. And Universe, I'm gonna put these in chat after I finish reading them off. So keep a lookout on the chat. But Portugal decriminalized drug use in 2001. And in Portugal, monthly drug use declined among adults and teens. Drug deaths declined massively. HIV and AIDS transmission among drug users declined almost 100 times. And they decriminalized the number of people charged with drug possession and therefore reduced the overall pressure of drugs on the criminal justice system. I will link that source in chat, but we do have data on this. People have tried this before and it has largely worked, right? So while I respect like your lived experience, I respect your kind of personal experience, like anecdotes and stuff. But if you look into the actual evidence of like how this has worked in other countries that have taken care of it, they've like basically solved their drug crisis to the extent that they can. I also have a source here on how
100%
increased.
right, Marcy. Good night.
Oh, good night. I've got another source here that I'll put in the chat right now because it's got an easier to copy link about how increased law enforcement does not actually curtail the violent crime that's caused by the illegal drug market. The only thing that could help is eliminating the market, and the best way to do that within our power is to decriminalize drugs so that the black market is at the very least restricted. Some countries have attempted to use like safe injection sites, and that's largely been a very effective method of keeping addicts from killing themselves, basically, and from harming others. To have like a specific place where they can go and get a drug disease-free needle and get their fix, and only their fix, right? Not overdose. Yeah. So I think that there are ways to go about this that aren't just the current method of like increasing the cops and locking people up and all
I
the
don't think
like
that's the
tough
case. I
stuff,
don't think we should do that either. I don't know what the solution would be. I just decriminalizing, making it legal for people to do things that put because the reason that those other drugs, in my opinion, are more dangerous to legalize is because like for weed and shrooms and shit, if you've ever done it, you don't like think like that's what I was saying when I was saying like I've seen people on meth go from being normal to doing meth and then threatening to murder people and legitimately about to do it, like where I've had to lock doors, stand in front of them and shit while people were banging on the fucking door. Like it's a whole ass thing, right? Weed, you don't like those natural chemicals. Now acid might be a little different story, but things that are natural like that, you don't have that effect. Like so cocaine and heroin, I've fucking done shit on cocaine. I've done shit that I regret. Like those things put other people in danger, not just
I understand.
myself.
Wait. Universe.
So you're like allowing people to do these like just without any worry is a fucking mistake.
But you're okay, Universe. You're telling me this, right? And like I understand that like bad things, yes. But the fact that you've seen these things, the fact that you've experienced these things is proof enough to me that what we're doing currently isn't necessarily working, So I understand your concern. I understand your concern about like decriminalizing it'll make it more like easy to get or make it like you're gonna have people doing meth just for fun or whatever, but it's not like it's gonna be sold at the grocery store, right? Decriminalization just means we don't lock people up for possessing it. And I like locking people up for possessing it, whatever, it's not exactly doing the best right now. So I'm not for necessarily decriminalizing the sale and distribution. I don't know, I haven't really looked into that. But as for personal use, decriminalizing methamphetamines and heroin and all that stuff in like Portugal and other countries that have tried that hasn't led to that result that you're scared of. So I understand.
But here, I know for a fact, like a lot of people that are in the rehabilitation like centers would not be there without having priorly being booked in. That's the reason they're fucking there. For whether they finish it or not, that's the only reason they're fucking there.
Hold on. If I can
so
pop in real quick, man.
Carceral, removing the kind of carceral. I'll let you jump in just a sec. Removing the kind of carceral element of that would help more people seek treatment, and that's empirically shown in these other countries, right? So I understand that like bad things and like you've experienced bad things, all of that. Yeah, you can go in detail about how you've seen people try to murder other people. Yeah, that's bad, right? But I'm not for more of that. I'm for whatever reduces that. And it seems currently that decriminalization does reduce that to the best of the ability of anything that we can do in our legal system, right? So with that feeling, Father, go ahead.
So Canadian caller had his hand up for a long time. Canadian caller, go ahead. Caller, and then Feline, and Varant. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Varant.
Wait, what the fuck, Prime?
And then
Joe.
Do you have your?
Yeah, I have my head.
Oh, did I call you before? Okay, so we'll go to yeah, that's right. It was you, Eagle Eye, then Canadian caller, then Feline Father, Joe, and then we'll get to the rest of you.
I should just change it.
So the only thing that I really had to sort of input onto this was when Dr. K was asking if anybody had any information about like checking, like going into rehab facilities and stuff. So my mom was actually a director of intake and admissions at a rehab facility. And what Universe was saying was true, that if if you're checking yourself into a rehab facility, it's not like cops can then just come in there and arrest you for it, like for checking yourself into rehab. So that is true. And that was really all I had to
Oh, Canadian.
Oh, okay, so a couple things. Decriminalization would be the idea. Legalization would be the ideal, but the first step is decriminalization. And we want to do decriminalization to remove the stigma from admitting that you use drugs. And once that stigma is removed, people are much more likely to go to places like methadone clinics to get help. There are multiple countries and states. No. Let me finish. We're giving you a lot of time to talk, dude. Please listen for a second. The information that has been provided in the chat shows, and I have similar studies from my own province of Ontario, that when you don't criminalize users and you give them a place to go to consume and you provide resources at that same place to help them get clean, they're much more likely to A, use drugs without overdosing, B, seek out that help, and D, when they do seek out that help, there will be medical professionals to help them with the withdrawal symptoms that come with trying to get over those harsher drugs. These are all things that are empirically true. I understand your lived experiences and I don't want to discount that, but like there's an entire body of literature going against what you're saying. So I would urge you to reconsider your thoughts.
Here where y'all go straight off the books. And this is one fucking subject that what I just said is that there's not enough, like there's not enough people that are trained medically and scientifically in this field yet. So this empirical evidence is not substantial enough to back up. Yes, I could read whatever the fuck I want, but this is something. This drug rehabilitation is something, and anybody that's been through it will tell you the same thing. I understand y'all haven't, so it's really hard for y'all to wrap your heads around this shit.
Wait.
If you've been through it, well, don't make the assumption that you could read everything about this, because you can't. Okay, so y'all sitting here saying, "Oh, I found this one article, good for you." I'm telling you from fucking literally, and I'm assuming that Eagle Eye could probably tell you a bunch of stories as well. I mean, that's how you learn. And yes, I would love to have more people getting involved in this and like learning about the science behind this, because there is. But saying that we should decriminalize things that put other people in danger, that's why they're so heavily moderated. Weed it was like a fucking political thing. But meth and shit, like, and those hard ass drugs like the heroin, the meth, the cocaine, the speed, the PCP, those things are extremely debilitating. They make you do things that you wouldn't normally do, and like way out of range of things that like you would normally do. Okay, so that's where the danger lies. And so yes, keeping those drugs that are man-made and like are keeping people in this fucking state of mind where it also like one time doing heroin can fucking kill you. It's not one time smoking weed will not fucking kill you.
So
you can literally take one hit of heroin,
let's go to,
as a little bit of fentanyl, which a shitload of people cut with, and it will absolutely fucking
Let's
kill
go to
you.
Feline Father.
So
Let's go to Feline Father, then Joe, and then we'll decide from there. But Marcy and Antel's doing that. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, everybody, Feline Father here. So yeah, I can just tell you right now, I also have lived experience with this. Right, I was addicted to a medication. Right, overdosed on it. Right, I've been there. Right, I understand. Right, but like you need to understand that like there's a couple of like things that like I want to like hit point what you just said. Right. So you said that there aren't many experts, not many scientists like researching this that are available to be able to deal with something that's decriminalized. Right. And part of the reason is because there isn't those resources available, because there is no need for it, because it is not decriminalized, right? We don't have mass amounts of people wanting to like, get out of a heroin and like meth addiction, right? Because when people start these drugs, meth, heroin, cocaine, when they start any kind of like addicted drug like this, they don't necessarily start it and continue like get addicted to it because it's fun. They start it, they get addicted to it because it's filling a need in their life that they are missing, right? And when you criminalize these things, right? You're further like criminalizing like that thing they're missing. You're further criminalizing like their life experience that they're trying to fill with this addictive drug, right? And you further push them underground, right? You push them into the recesses of the society, right? And you make it to where they are not able to easily come out and ask for help and get help, right? And when you make these things like decriminalized, right? Especially when it comes to heroin, right? You start doing like injection clinics, right, to where you can reduce HIV prominence, right? You can actually have command and control of these people that are addicted to these medications and these drugs, to where you can have them all in one area so they can get help all in one area, right? It's like a consolidated area. they're no longer afraid of like the possibility of the cops catching them and throwing them in jail. They're no longer afraid of the stigma that follows through with it, right? And like part of it is like it's like you need to understand it's like these resources are not available for these people in mass because of the current structure of the like how these are like are illegal substances, right? Because no state, no federal budget can actually allot money to it because it's illegal, right? That's why we have so much. That's why it's like so much of like a hassle, like wrestling with states currently to get like a needle exchange program here in Nevada and Las Vegas. We have one of the only needle exchange programs in the whole state of Nevada because it's goddamn hard to actually get it started because of like the red tape and like the legality behind it, right? Because it's like almost like technically illegal in medical malpractice to be exchanging needles with these people, right? And it's like you also need to realize it's not a matter of like validating their drug use and saying go for it, like go wild. Like let me ask you something, right? And like it's like from your personal like lived experience, right? Do you think if meth was made decriminalized, do you think people would just start doing it in mass?
Yes, the people people would be selling it much more. Like
Yeah,
part of the reason. Look, I don't get what the thing is where people shouldn't feel shame anymore. You should feel shame. You should feel shame for doing shit like selling drugs to fucking kids on the street, selling heroin to some fucking punk ass teenager. Yes, you should feel shame for that.
You say more people do it, right? So are you under the assumption that people aren't doing meth and doing these hard drugs because of like a underlying mental illness? Do you think that people are just doing it for fun?
No, I mean, I know for a fact. I mean, it's not everybody, but most people, yeah, it's like what you're saying. They're filling a void, right? But part of the reason that people don't, it's not so much the doing for me. It's more of the distributing to.
Right.
If you decriminalize it and allow people to just walk around the street with sex and meth and anything inside to anybody, that's
Okay,
crazy.
if you
Let me
like,
ask you, would you rather have these people out in the open, right, and able to get help? We're able to identify those that need help, or would you rather have them like have to hide in the recesses of society and like be afraid of like being thrown in jail, like because it's illegal? Like, would you rather have them visible or not visible?
I mean, I guess I would rather them, whatever. I'm not saying that let me just say, I'm not saying our current system works by any stretch of the imagination. It doesn't. I mean, it like 80% of people that go into rehabilitation centers fail, right? That's just a fact. But, well, actually, the funny thing is there's no regulations on the evidence being put out from these rehabilitation centers. So actually, nobody really fucking knows. They say sometimes it's 80% success rate, and they have no actual evidence to back it up. Well, it's because I mean, people for a long time, this has been like it's a choice type thing, right? Like you choose to be this, you should feel shame. You're an addict. Like my family, I'm the black sheep of my family. No, I don't think it's okay. I mean,
Why do you
there
think
are
it's
a lot of
okay?
people. I think education is the most necessary thing in most topics that ever get discussed on here. For the matter, I think education and like having a system. I'm not here to say how. I don't fucking know. But getting out there and being able to educate people effectively, like with fucking facts, with science.
okay, so go ahead. So go ahead, Feline. Finish whatever you're doing here, so I can move on.
So let's just say that like bring this up, right? So you say education, right? Your big thing is like educating people, right, on the dangers of meth. Do you think anybody honestly thinks meth is safe?
Well, it's not the dangers of meth. I mean, I guess it's like, I mean, yeah, it is, but I don't know if people think it's safe. People probably, in my experience, people don't really care. They don't think it's going to kill them the first time,
Right?
and it might not. That's not the case. But
They might have like an underlying mental illness, right? And if you don't
not necessarily, not everybody.
Oh,
Some people are just fucking. And I'm telling you, some people just do it because they want to. There are people like that, and those are the people a lot of times that don't last in rehab because they don't really want to. Also, the way that the rehab system works is it was created by two guys like 110 years ago, based on the Bible, based on no statistical evidence whatsoever, based on like their feelings. Which, dude, look, more power to them. At least it helps some people, but it helps not enough people. Okay, the way our system works, like just locking people. Because I've been around it and I've seen people die and I've had friends down on that shit. Guys, I would love everybody that's selling fucking meth to kids needs to be locked the fuck up. That's a fact.
I'm right there with you. And I would have
You shouldn't
rather
be-
that
you
they
shouldn't
were
just be
allowed-
letting these like criminal ass motherfuckers. Nobody's selling meth is not a criminal. You don't have Joe Schmo that goes to Applebee's with his family. This isn't AMC You don't have an actual like fucking what's his name, Walter White walking around. Okay, these are fucking real ass criminals with guns and knives that will fucking kill you over a dime set.
Okay,
Like,
so I'm moving. I gotta move forward. Joe, go ahead. Joe's been waiting patiently.
Oh yeah. Well, shit. It's a complicated topic. Obviously, this decriminalization overall, but one of the most crucial things, obviously, is that all drugs are different. There are endless categories, subcategories, and different analogs for fucking different types of fake weed and whatever the hell. And we know definitely. I hope we're all here aware that like weed is different from heroin and meth, definitely. And then also there are other categories where we're already kind of decriminalizing them in some parts of the US, like shrooms and LSD, DMT, etc. All sorts of religious drugs. I didn't think anybody's decriminalizing LSD yet, but I put that in this psychedelics, right? And then there are whatever like hard ass drugs that tend to come out in poverty and socially divide people and especially create crime that you're experienced with, right?
Hold on. Let's not pretend that you can't get addicted to marijuana. Like that's an absolute thing you can do.
I mean, absolutely, yeah. I'm addicted to marijuana. Yeah, sure.
It's kind of funny
I know, no, marijuana can be abused, of course.
Centers like that is not looked at as an actual.
But yeah, so hold on.
Oh yeah, please, Joe, go.
I'm not finished, dog. Okay. So yeah, like all drugs are different and require different treatment and shit. But I think we're not really paying attention to why decriminalization works. We know in other countries that decriminalization is an effective way of reducing crime and drug abuse overall. And that's because it gets rid of this a lot of the social problems that are taken on by someone who starts becoming addicted to heroin or meth. You know that because of the ghettoization and criminalization of these drugs and shit, once you start doing super illegal drugs, then you're fucked in a certain way.
Don't go down the path of like chemical hooks argument, because that's not true either.
Of what?
Like the chemical hooks argument that like once
I'm
you
not-
start taking
No, not chemical hooks. What? No. I mean, you end up in well, fucking. I've been in trap houses. You know, like you end up in worse and worse social places where police will find you, and shit like that. And it's and a lot of those social problems are just because it's illegal, and people need to be scared for their lives once they make the fuck up of trying and heaven forbid getting addicted to well, I think it seems like heroin and meth are the main ones we're talking about here, but there are obviously ecstasy has its own kind of fucking world and whatever. I think I've made my point roughly, but it's been a little rocky.
Let's go to Captain Nate Jones. I think you wanted to say something previously. Then we'll go to Marcy and Ninetales, and then we'll see if Fanatic wants to add something.
Yeah, thank you. So, Universe, I just wanted to ask you a question. Do you think the illegal sale of marijuana went up or down when it was legalized?
Wait, what?
Of marijuana. Do you think when marijuana was legalized, do you think the illegal sale of marijuana went up or down when the state legalized marijuana?
I don't know, man. I don't know the facts on that. I would assume it probably stayed roughly the same, though. I mean, nobody that I knew that sold pot, like prior to it being legalized, stopped selling pot.
Damn, everybody I knew stopped selling pot. It became like the only.
Did they start working at a fucking grow farm? Like, why would they stop selling?
No, but well, I mean, they
had
other jobs.
It was legal, so now, so they had okay. I'm talking about people that sell pot for a living, sell drugs for a living. No, none of them stopped. Why would they stop? They're not going to go and take their drugs and get taxed on it. That doesn't make any fucking sense. They make straight up cash every day. What?
So
no, I don't think. I mean, I think that there is a lot more legal access. There's a lot more people like that just had money like previously. Like my parents were thinking about opening up a grow farm. I think it was a cool idea, but they've never sold drugs, right? That you don't have to. It's a business now. It's not like you come to my house, come to and buy a set.
Well, but that's legal. I'm not talking about legal. I'm talking about
The
illegal.
illegal
Because the point that I'm trying to make.
I don't think it changed much. I don't think it went up or down. I don't think
it did.
There's people that were priorly selling drugs that like moved on. There might have been some, but I don't think it was like a significant.
But then it went down, is what you're saying.
I mean, possibly, yeah.
I mean, possibly.
I would say it went down definitely more than it went up. If I was going to assume, I don't know, but that's
So okay. So my point, universe, is that if it went down for marijuana, let's say you're granting me that the illegal sale of marijuana went down. That's a good thing, right? We don't want people illegally selling marijuana, just like we don't want people illegally selling.
Wait, why does it matter?
Let him finish. Jones, finish.
Yeah, thank. Why do we want? We don't want people illegally selling marijuana. We don't want people illegally selling things like heroin, right? But if we made heroin legal, made it a regulated system, what do you think would happen to the amount of people selling heroin illegally? Do you think the amount of people selling
that the only thing that makes something an illegal sale is where it's being sold? Like if Walmart starts selling heroin, is it no longer?
I'm not saying Walmart. I'm not saying Walmart.
I know, but I'm just saying, why is it so? Like, I've never understood this. Why is it illegal to sell out of your house if the state is legal?
So you're not answering the question though, because my whole point is if the goal, we all want the goal is to have less illegal sale of these drugs, so that because going right back to what you were saying, like to your lived experiences, dude, like when you were saying that, like my heart actually went out for you. Like I was truly like I really felt for you, because like I've seen like people smoking meth, people doing ecstasy and drugs, and myself doing a lot of these drugs. Like I've seen what it does, and it's fucking horrible. And I totally understand where you're coming from, and as someone who's also been through a lot of those same experiences, like I have to say, like I have a different viewpoint than you, and I really do think that illegalizing all drugs, all of them, and regulating it will decrease the amount of illegal drug sales, which will decrease the amount of things like what you were saying, which was like people lacing their drugs with fentanyl. And that shit's horrible. Like they just had in San Francisco where I live, they just had a couple months ago a notice for people who were doing cocaine that there was a huge batch of cocaine laced with fentanyl. Cocaine and fentanyl, that doesn't even make sense.
Hey, yo,
I guess one of the problems I have is that you can overdose and die on these hard drugs. Like you can do enough where the drug will literally kill you.
Why you regulate it?
Smoking weed.
We're gonna go we'll go to
why regulate?
Did you ever see like shit that would happen, like when someone would get something that's way fucking stronger than they thought
You're missing the
because
point.
they're used to shitty shit?
So
we'll go to sorry, hold on. Sorry, hold on. We got a lot of people want to jump in. We got Merce, we got Ninetales, and then we're gonna go to Fanatic.
All right, cool. So I wrote some stuff down while Universe was talking last time, so I hope you don't mind. I kind of refocus this a little bit. So at first, I just want to caution you a little bit. I understand, like, it's clearly a sensitive issue, and like I get that it's a sensitive issue for a lot of people here, I'm sure. But making the assumption that like nobody else here has been through anything comparable to you is really I like that is borderline like crossing a line, right? So be careful with that. Just want to caution you to be careful with that. But to address your actual point, right? Saying that like people cut heroin with fentanyl, they cut drugs with all sorts of stuff, right? That's an argument for decriminalization. That's an argument for safe injection sites, right? You go to a safe injection site, you're not going to get fentanyl. If you want heroin, you're going to get heroin, right? You're going to get a dose that will probably not kill you. Also, you'll get like.
Oh, please let her finish.
Wait a minute.
Let her finish, please. Mercy.
Okay.
Safe injection sites are not run by like imaginary like TV drug dealing thugs, right? Safe injection sites are run by the government. They're like, so it's not like they're passing out heroin to all the junkies who just want to be. It's literally like a government program that's been tried in some Scandinavian countries and has been shown to work, right? So we got that, right? But I also wanted to address what you said about like, you just think you can read this or read that. You've never seen meth. You've never seen its effects, whatever, right? So the Portugal example that I gave earlier, this is like classic anti-intellectualism, right? It's not that I want you to like read an imaginary, like scholarly academic article that says this stuff happened and this stuff happened. This is like data of a real event that actually happened. Portugal decriminalized drug use and it only helped their drug problem, right? Like
I've been reading it, by the way.
Yeah, okay, cool. So empirical evidence is cool, right? Because it's things that we know that have already happened because they've been tested in the real world. It's not like I'm telling you to read a hypothetical, right? So I just want to say, like, your lived experience, like, you're telling us how bad these drugs are, but you're not proposing solutions, right? And I do think early childhood education is a great way, but I don't think you're going to scare kids into not doing drugs, right? People don't do drugs because they think it's perfectly safe, golly, right? They do them because they're filling a hole in their heart, right? They're filling a void in their life. And I think that addressing that and addressing like it's doing... it's tough for me, right? Because I don't think that DARE programs should just be going, this will happen to you if you do meth, and this will happen to you, and this will happen to you, because like we're seeing that doesn't work, right? I think it should be addressed as like a mental health issue. I think that kids should be learning about like why people do these things and where to go and like where to seek help, maybe to avoid getting involved with drugs in the first place, right? I think you can treat a problem at its core instead of just like locking people up for doing it, right?
Yeah, no, I believe the same thing for sure. I just do believe that certain drugs don't need to be a part of society, period. And
But you're not going to, but since we can't eliminate all of a drug from society, like we can't round up all of that drug, burn it in the street, and like put up a net so nobody gets high while we're burning it, and then we like make sure nobody ever gets it ever again, right? That's not going to happen.
Good point earlier that these drugs like heroin, meth, fucking PCP, these are very low income areas where these are heavily used. Okay, so like it would take a very long time, but I mean, I think there's never going to be a way to solve this crisis without helping people out of their financial struggles.
No, that's true. I totally agree.
People grow up in these environments where, like I was saying with the crack epidemic of the 80s, where it was literally injected into these black neighborhoods to keep them addicted to something. I mean, that's
I
know
it's fucked up,
also,
right?
I don't know if you word this incorrectly or not, but you don't go to safe injection places and get heroin. Okay, they don't inject you with heroin. They give you either safe needles or they give you like a very low dosage of a regulated medicine that has similar.
It's methadone, right?
The point is that they can also test it for you.
But they don't like this.
They also but they also no, but they also do like drug testing and stuff like that. So if you have a sample, right, and you test it and you find out there's fentanyl in it, you can like not do it, right?
I mean,
so there's that, but also but really quick, what you said about like there's no easy way to solve this problem or whatever, and like we're not gonna fix this without addressing kind of the economic like background of a lot of it. I totally agree with you, right? That's why I advocate for like a stronger social safety net, right, and a welfare state, things to actually help people out of the poverty that is driving them to get involved in these things. But I think that while we do that, we should be trying to minimize the problem as much as possible in this moment, right? And drug decriminalization from the data that we have is a great way of doing that. Okay, so I agree. I agree with you that we should be addressing the economic like root of the problem, and also probably educating better and doing like because DARE doesn't work, right? It's been shown not to work. But I just like keeping people in these cycles of poverty where they get locked up and out on the street and locked up and out on the street is not helping. Like this like hyper criminalization, this war on drugs that we have in this country is not helping us get over our drug problem. In fact, it's holding us back.
So that's
where I'm at.
So I'm gonna go to Ninetales and then Fnatic and then Feline.
Yeah, Universe, I'm sure you're coming from a good place. So I'm just going to quickly point out that I have a couple things to point out that I think are just worth like me pointing out, and then I'm going to get to the final point. The first being that Oh, actually, I only have one major point, and then we'll get to like the thing that's better to respond to. So, I think that before you go telling people whether or not they're qualified to have an opinion, you should be asking yourself if you even understand the drugs that you're talking about. I've seen serious signs that you don't. You seem to categorize LSD as natural, but here's the thing: is like whether or not
So
something's
there are
natural.
natural parts. There's some plant that the actual thing comes from, but it's not a natural process. I just said it could be considered. You
Okay,
know,
but whether or not
I
something's
mean, if you're
natural
gonna
doesn't.
doubt my understanding of
Can
drugs right
can
now,
I?
shut that shit
Go
Yeah.
ahead,
Okay.
Ninetales.
Yeah. So whether or not something's natural doesn't actually say much about the properties, certainly doesn't say anything about its toxicity or its pharmacology. So we can't actually glean anything from that. In fact, it's actually quite interesting. Natural substances can be just as toxic and addictive. Look at opium. Not only is opium super addictive, it was used to like poison the Chinese by the British after as part of their colonial reign. So clearly something being natural is not conducive to anything. And for anyone who does think that LSD is natural, I'm just going to quickly point out, first of all, it's made by an entirely synthetic process. It's hardly made directly from LSA, and when it is, it's not real LSD. Secondly, the pathway it targets, the 5-HT2A receptor, not only does it target that with more specificity than any other compound out there, which makes it highly unnatural, it modulates it, which makes it like even more unpredictable than like what an antidepressant does, which just simply stops the reuptake of the serotonin. So like LSD, as natural as it is can be quite toxic, especially to like when you look at like someone getting early onset schizophrenia. That is something that we have to be like seriously considering. Anyways, yeah, I think if you want to improve the economic conditions of people who are on drugs, and you don't want them to be stigmatized for what they do, but I think a lot of what you said does inherently stigmatize them, then you need to consider that putting them in jail can only worsen their economic condition. Criminalizing them, the user can only ever worsen their economic condition. So if you think that improving it will help them get out of drugs, and like here's the thing is like when we legalize it, we also help people. We make the help more accessible, so people are more likely to get it, because nobody can actually do this on their own. So, like, by not making them go through jail, we actually help them not let their own socioeconomic condition go to shit. And I think it might help to ask yourself, like, am I assigning a lot of blame to the fact that these people are using a lot of agency, when in like we have to separate agency from the equation if this is actually an addictive substance, because if it is addictive, then like the person's agency isn't as much of a factor. So that's just a point of stigma. Like if you might be stigmatizing them if you're giving them more agency than what you really should be.
Okay, let's go to Fanatic.
Yeah, so this conversation has gone on in like a really crazy way for quite some time. I just decided to look up some statistics, right? I think if we're going to actually entertain this conversation, we should probably be a little bit more data driven. Simply making something illegal, as I'm sure all of you guys know, it kind of goes without saying, but just making something illegal doesn't actually decrease the usage of it. In fact, those kind of things tend to be anti-corollary. So 90% of smokers start smoking, this is for cigarettes, start smoking before the age of 18. 90%. Of course, cigarettes for like all of our lifetime, for the most part, have always been illegal to purchase before the age of 18. But they didn't stop it. The average person starts smoking at age 13. So that's one thing. Then secondly, we started looking at data regarding youth indulgence in illegal substances, specifically marijuana, and we found that marijuana usage decreased in all states for youth consumption once it was legalized. So if a big portion of your interest is in trying to decrease the amount of youth consumption and illegal consumption of a product, then typically legalization removes the novelty from the item, and then that decreases the amount of youth purchasing the thing. So if your whole goal is to point out how atrocious some of these drugs are and how destructive they can be towards society and towards youth and how harmful they are, if we can look and find that legal consumption tends to create safer environments in which less harm is done, then I think that's probably a worthwhile thing. And then when we also recognize that our current current way of handling it is absolutely atrocious, and we have plenty of data that shows the contrary. It really, I mean, that shows that a different way of handling it will yield us different results. I think it's almost laughable for you to try to inject into this conversation your own personal anecdotes and your personal experience when we have large-scale studies from entire countries that have completely changed the way things are working with crazy results, crazy effective results. If we're on the same side in wanting these drugs to become less dangerous, wanting less harm, wanting less youth to be doing it, wanting less illegal sales, wanting safer environments, wanting all of that, if these are all of the things, and you're saying that you want all of these things, and we're saying here are large-scale examples of this happening in entire countries, and it's incredibly effective. And then Venezuela did it, some Scandinavian countries did it, and then we also have our own states, Colorado and 2 other states that legalized marijuana, and we saw youth consumption drop. We saw less drug-related deaths because sometimes, I know this happens more often for cocaine and other like harder drugs, more expensive drugs, but sometimes the consumption of marijuana, when it's illegal, creates nefarious environments in which people are doing really terrible things. So if we recognize that legalization in our own country, besides the Scandinavian countries and other countries, if we're recognizing that legalization in our own country has yielded us really positive results, why would you maintain this unfounded opinion that somehow keeping things illegal or legalization would be harmful when we have all the evidence to the contrary? Give me something that counters data other than just your idea, because it sounds like all you're positing is drugs are bad.
So I just want to say I agree with everything Fanatic just said, except that with the exception of
Wait, can you respond, please? Can you just let him respond though?
Oh, go, yeah.
Look, again, I'll say this: you can read and look up the data on these other countries. First of all, you're comparing 2 different countries, 2 different drugs. Weed is not the same thing as heroin. It's not the same thing as meth. Doesn't have the same effect. Okay, doesn't have the same effect on the community it's around. It doesn't have the same effect on the people it affects.
In the Scandinavian countries, it wasn't just weed. So in the Scandinavian countries, it wasn't just weed.
No, Portugal legalized or decriminalized fucking heroin. I mean, look, I think somehow y'all have gotten the idea that I think that everybody that ever touches a drug should be locked up. That's not the case. I personally, being through that, no, I'm just saying that from what I've been hearing. I've been through the system multiple times. I'm the fucking revolving door guy. Like, I go in and out. Okay, so I know the way that the prison system works is fucked up. It doesn't help anybody. Going to prison, but like, here's what I would say. Let's say, I'm sure y'all have siblings or younger cousins, right? Like, let's say 13 years old, middle school, but getting out of the world. If you found out that your neighbor sold your fucking cousin meth,
You're not answering my
your
question.
cousin and your cousin died from that. What would you think would be what would you think should happen to that?
You're not answering my question.
Let him finish. I'm asking everybody in here. Okay, this is a serious fucking question.
No one's answering that question. No one's gonna answer that question because you haven't answered my question. Answer my question.
What was your question? What was your question?
I asked 3 of them. Okay, so the first question was if we recognize that obviously through legalization from various countries and even within our own government, we've seen that legalization creates all of the positive benefits that we're talking about. Less youth consumption, less violence around illegal drug sales, less harmful environments, and all of those other benefits that come with that. If we recognize that those are all goals that we would have, and if we can see that that happens to be the case, not just here, obviously in Portugal, I think Venezuela did it as well. So then the question is, if we have all of this data that proves that these things tend to be more susceptible,
are they going around with a fucking clipboard asking people if they still do fucking drugs? How are they getting this data?
Sure. So no. Okay, I'll answer the question. So one of the ways that you would figure out how people gather the data is, for one, you can track when it comes to the violence. Of course, anytime like there's a murder or a violent incident in any country, then typically they start gathering. They do investigations to try to discover and ascertain what were the conditions surrounding that violence. So if there was, for example, if this condition surrounding violence was drug usage, then they would be able to, that's what they would get. So then they would have that, they would collect that data. But we've seen a complete decrease, a very, very strong, sharp decrease in violence around illegal drug sales. And I know that violence is typically more involved when it comes to cocaine, heroin, and other expensive drugs, but there is still violence even when it comes to marijuana. And in the other countries, they've been able to do the same thing. You can collect data and recognize that there's less violence, less murders, less robberies, less deaths, so on and so forth, which is typically associated with drug sale environments. Even though the vast majority of drug sales tend to be safe, actually, the vast majority of them are nonviolent, but there are a significant amount of total violent things. So you can collect that data that way. Furthermore, when it comes to youth consumption, we already do questionnaires and studies asking youth about how often that they do marijuana. They already collect this data. The thing is, hold on, and even within those things, even while it was illegal and more highly stigmatized, more youth were willing to admit that they were doing marijuana because the studies are typically anonymous. So even once we legalized it and it became destigmatized, even in that case, less youth were admitting to doing marijuana. So then there was less of an incentive for them to lie, considering the fact that they're less likely to be harmed for it, and it's less stigmatized. But even within a less stigmatized environment, less youth were admitting to doing marijuana, which causes us to believe that it sounds reasonable to assume that given the fact that there's less incentive to lie, that they're probably being truthful when they're saying that they're not using it at the same rate. So that's how you would collect that data. So we have all of this data. You can study it in various ways. So if we have all of this data, why? Just explain to me why we should trust your opinion as opposed to data from various countries and even data within our own states.
Well, I'll say this. First of all, again, you're comparing the data. First of all, one of the things that y'all been talking about is that there's this stigma on drugs, right? So people don't want to talk about it. So what makes you think that somebody coming up to you asking you out of nowhere, do you do
answer my question?
I'm not gonna. I will, but I'm just saying, what makes you think that they're going to be honest? What makes you think that nobody's going to be like, oh yeah, I fucking do heroin? No, they won't. Nobody will fucking say that. And also, like, the data on marijuana is not comparable to any data on any other drug. Marijuana, I'm in agreement. I don't give a fuck about marijuana. I smoke weed. Okay, I advocate for not doing drugs to kids on a weekly basis, but I smoke weed. I mean, to me, that's a different fucking thing. But it's not chemical. It's not man-made. That's just my own personal opinion on it. You can think what you want, but I don't. First of all, I'll disagree with the fact that I think the evidence and the facts that we have, I don't think it's substantial enough. I've already said that. I don't think just because one group of people and wherever the fuck, I don't know what the data you're looking at is, so I'm just going to assume, like, right.
We're talking about millions of people across multiple countries.
No, you're saying again, you're comparing. Okay, I'm not going to compare any data between Portugal, Scandinavia, wherever the fuck you're talking about, and here. This place we're different here. This is different.
We have studies from America as well.
This is okay. Wait. This is just
not people, but the way the country runs, and it's
we've
different.
given you examples from America as well.
So
So again,
you're comparing the data on marijuana
that you didn't answer. Why should
Universe
the experience of you?
Marcy's been waiting a long time to go.
No, yeah.
Sorry, go ahead,
What's that? Stop. Thanks. Wait. I mean, hold on. Can we literally get an answer to this? Because Fanatic asked a really good question. I'm going to answer. Why should we believe European rather than the data that has been provided?
I guess I don't know. I can't tell you what to believe. You can believe whatever you want. I'm just putting my experience, and apparently that's experience in that field, which is the only real experience I fucking have in this life. So I guess I don't know. I'm not going to question my own beliefs because I know. I'm not going to sit here and say that, yes, while it might have worked, and I don't know, I've been skimming over this article in Portugal. I don't know all the facts. Again, I will say, probably speaking, like, just because they do criminalize it and went around and asked people if they're not doing heroin anymore, I'm going to go ahead and say that people are going to lie. Okay? You're not going to tell people that you're going to that you're doing heroin. It doesn't matter if it's decriminalized or not. The shame is still there.
Yeah, because if it's not criminal, then they're not going to lie about it because there's no stigma. Thank you for being smarter than everyone else. Putting obvious points.
Okay.
It's absolutely not like, look, just because something is legal doesn't mean people don't still hold shame with the stigma behind it. There's a lot of
Don't
shame.
add to that by institutionalizing the stigma.
No, I'm not saying, again, I'm not saying you should be just throwing people that use in jail. I'm not actually going after users. Okay, that's the people I feel for. Those are the people I'm trying to help. I'm talking about the people that I've seen personally don't use their own product and sell it to fucking kids on the street.
That's who we want to be criminal for. Dude, we're talking about
decriminalization will not fucking help the distributor. It'll only help them.
So Fanatic, if you had a point you want to finish, then we're gonna go to Feline Father, and then
Yeah. This is it. You guys, we got it. Okay, look, this is one of those things that happens. Like where we recognize that when you have a conversation, we've all been there. Like if we're honest with ourselves, where you're like really confronted with data and it really challenges your beliefs. And by the time you get there, you start really getting to this uneasy point. Hold on, where you get to this uneasy point where you start feeling like, oh my God, like this doesn't sound like I'm not feeling really confident. It does sound a little bit wrong, but it is hard when you're being literally challenged by everyone in the room and everyone's telling you one thing. I think at this point, beating this horse any further, I don't even think it's actually helpful, because to be honest with you, the truth already sunk in. You could see how much he was struggling in his last rebuttal. He didn't really, it's like, oh, wait, hold on, let me finish.
Okay, what? Stop. Whoa, everyone, shut up. I don't care who you are. Don't worry, I'll just mute you all. Don't worry, I will mute you all. Okay, it makes it easier when I just mute.
I'm actually gonna
mute. Okay, great.
All right, there we go. Yeah, so basically I'm saying there's a point where you recognize where it's really difficult to hold on to that kind of thing. Like that kind of conversation gets really difficult to have. But there was an obvious struggle at that point. It's very obvious that the information is there. Where even the words start coming out of your mouth like, I'm not going to question my own belief. Like you recognize at that point where it's like, well, I really don't know why you should trust me over data. And like this is a dead horse. You shouldn't be beating it any further at this point. He gets the point. And I think we're all in agreement. We should probably move on. This is one of those things that when he leaves the conversation, it's going to be sitting there and he's going to be ruminating and cogitating on it for a while. And it's going to finally hit him. And it's going to take maybe another person. But eventually he'll get to the truth. Like right now, we really can't force it any further, being honest.
Yeah. Feline Father and Joe. And then Mercy after that.
All right. So, I'm not going to pile on him now. Right. I'm going to say one thing. When we're having a conversation like this, like debate bro tactics are not going to convince anybody of anything. Right. Nobody at any point in this panel asked him, like, what evidence could we bring to you that might potentially change your mind? Right. All we were doing is just throwing data point after data point at him, being confused and not understanding why he doesn't get it. When you literally did not ask him and get to the fundamental reason why he contends against what we're saying. You could have asked your chance.
He told us that. He told us that. He told us that. He said that he doesn't believe it. He said he doesn't believe that the people were true.
You could have asked him, what data points, what can we bring to your attention, right, that would convince you otherwise, right? What, right? Nobody asked him that. Second thing, I've been sitting on this for a while. Captain Jones, you'd mentioned deregulation of illicit drugs will get rid of the illegal market, right? When in actuality,
get rid of.
Yeah, so it's not the case, right? So for example, here in Nevada, right, it's legal to sell marijuana here, but the illegal marijuana trade is still thriving, right? It's the same situation in Canada, everywhere.
How long has it been legal?
2 years.
2 years?
Yes.
Okay, maybe just wait a few years. Jesus.
In Canada, that's the case in every single country that is a legal drug has been recently made legal, right? The illegal market doesn't lose its commodification or its price. It's priced over once it becomes legal, it gets way more expensive, right? So the only way that the illegal market can actually disappear is if the illicit substance is literally legal in the globe, right? So I'm just it's just not a good argument to make that once something becomes legal, there's no longer an incentive to be illegal.
I didn't say no longer.
There's no incentive to sell it illegally because you can sell it cheaper and you can undercut the state, right? The whole point of
that's a straw man. That's not the argument I made.
Hyper straw man. No one ever said anything like that. Listen.
Yeah, that's a hyper straw man.
The way the data goes, it's not that not that the same type of illegal drugs are being sold. What ends up happening is an exchange.
Bro, chill.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not done talking, bro. So like I was saying, right?
You're just gish galloping. You've just said three things that we were all wrong.
Yeah, that was all. I never said any of those things, but I mean, you can keep saying I did. I didn't. I can clarify for you if you really want me to.
Yeah, please do.
Okay, so what I said was that if you make drugs legal, and we're talking about heroin or marijuana, then it's going tax them, regulate them, etc. Then what's going to happen is the illegal sale of these drugs is going to go down because they are going to be faced with the competition of the free market. Now, the illegal sale of drugs will still be illegal, but they will now have to compete with. Now, let's say I'm a heroin addict. Do you think that I want to go now be using heroin again? Not illegal. That's legal to use it.
Yep.
So if I'm a heroin addict, where do you think I'm going to go? I'm going to go to the well-regulated place to get my heroin for the same price, or am I going to go to the street dealer for the same price? See, if you have a well-regulated
price, it could be the same price as like legal price.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the first thing you said.
I said you're living in a fantasy land if you think the price of like illegal drugs will be the same price as legal drugs.
Dude, are you fucking kidding me? I'm paying literally for like an ounce of really good fucking weed like $80 legally. Dude, are you joking right now? That's not something that used to be something. I've been smoking weed. I'm 30 plus years old. I've been smoking weed for half of my life, and I can tell you that the cost of an ounce of marijuana has gone down significantly since it was legalized.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right.
That's just a fact.
Let's go.
So I think you're just talking kind of just out of your ass right now.
Let's go to Joe, then Marcy, then Ninetales.
Okay. Wait, do I sound okay?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay, yeah. I'm on my phone now because my computer died, so I just kind of wanted to say, I guess, the last couple things, but I'm not sure if I missed anything important, but it seems like I think Fnatic made a lot of really good points and pretty much summed up a lot of the sort of evidence side of the debate, I guess. And seems like, sorry, I can't see all the names at once. Yeah, Universe. I mean, it seems like you're just really worried that your personal experiences have given you an actually inaccurate view of society and how these regulations work. And I mean, it's just hard to be right about all this shit on a gut feeling, man. There's a lot of data, there's a lot of effort worldwide that's gone into solving this problem, and America just ain't doing it right. And that's
Universe, you're muted,
I guess
by the
kind of
way.
all I got.
Yeah. We'll get back to you. So we'll go to Marcy. Then
wait, I kind of need to go though. I'm on my phone now.
Thank you.
It's been really fun though. I'll come back definitely.
Okay, great. So Marcy,
Peace.
Ninetales, then Canadian.
Yeah, I was gonna address him, but he dipped. I just want to clarify for the audience's sake, right? What we're talking about here is like mostly, or at least what I was talking about in regards to the empirical data from Portugal, is decriminalization of the use of drugs, right? So when Universe says I'm not opposed to not locking people up for using drugs, or I'm only opposed to like the sale and distribution of drugs, or like the people that frankly are imaginary who are going up to kids and going, "Hey, you want to buy some drugs?" Rah! Like that. I understand maybe in some fringe cases these people might exist, but for like it's largely a stereotype, right? So I understand where the fear comes from, but what we're talking about in the empirical data is like the decriminalization of the use of drugs. So I just hope everybody keeps that in mind, right? We're not talking about like letting people sell your kids drugs. I think that was a really strong emotional appeal, but yeah. Okay, now that you're back, I want to address you for just a second.
Can we just quit dogpiling on the man? Like seriously.
No, I'm not going to dogpile on him. I am here in good faith, right? I don't want to insult the guy. I just like, I understand the kind of cognitive dissonance, right? When like you're confronted with all this stuff, I understand minds aren't changed instantly, right? I think that you're probably going to sit with this and like eventually it's going to sink in and you're going to kind of adjust your worldview accordingly, right? And you're shaking your head, and I get it. You know, I've been there, but it'll
Wait, to the question. Get to the question.
Right?
What is the question?
Oh, I didn't have a question. I just wanted to tell him that I understand the not accepting it at face value, but
Okay.
you'll get it.
So nine tails and then Canadian.
Yeah, Feline, I'd like to address what you said about it being inevitable that the drugs will cost more if the government supplies them. I think that while you think you have evidence for that, that evidence actually isn't what you think it is. When we look at medicinal weed before it was legalized here, I can verify firsthand because I had a few friends who gave me access to it, that it was cheaper for better quality than what was being sold on the streets. Just because when they were doing that, they had every reason to help people get the best weed possible. What here in Ontario and Canada tends to do, because Canada loves its commodities that it can tax for the consumers, look at cigarettes, is it said, if we can mark this up quite a bit and people will still buy it, there's enough demand for this that we can just, that we can just make more profit from it. I don't think that's necessary, though. I think a proper administration would say we want to get if the administration truly wants to get rid of the black market, and I agree that if you don't do this, you will enhance the black market by allowing them to sell cheaper weed. But if they truly want to get rid of the black market, they simply just have to subsidize the growing and distribution of it. Make it more easy for people to grow, so that way there's slightly more supply than demand, and just keep quality above price. But so that way it'd be basically too expensive for a dealer to grow the same quality and sell it so cheap.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll go to Canadian, then Fanatic, and then we'll talk to University. It's clear what he has to say. Go ahead, Canadian.
Yes. Yeah. So kind of along the same lines, Feline, is that you are correct. If the price of legal marijuana is much higher than the price for the illegal variant, then people will go to the legal source. That is why that the Canadian government has been trying to aggressively lower the production costs of the marijuana they produced to meet those goals. I'm gonna put a link from StatsCan once I'm done talking. The price of okay, cool. The price
I agree.
yeah.
I agree, right? But this is with federal government.
Let me finish.
Yeah. So if we're to plot out the price of legal marijuana versus illegal marijuana, they're like two opposite sliding slopes. The price of legal marijuana is decreasing. It's gone down $2 over the past 4 quarters, and the price of illegal marijuana is increasing. And that's partially due to the fact that there's less of a market, right? Because people would rather go to the store than the guy they know, especially as the marginal difference gets smaller and smaller. And that is a part of Canada's drug strategy, is to try to meet that price point, to try to essentially buy out the black market. I just wanted to let you know.
No, and I agree, right? But that's with a drug that is going to be illegal to sell, right? We're talking about decriminalization. So if we decriminalize meth and whatever, right? There's not going to be a legal seller of this, right? So it's not going to get rid of the black market of it. And the only reason that's actually working in Canada currently, and you have a downtrend of it, is because of federal intervention, right? Because federal subsidies of the weed market, right? And it's a slow getting rid of the black market. It's not the idea of the free market, Big Brain will just undercut the cost of the black market, because if it wasn't for federal subsidies in Canada, correct me if I'm wrong, the black market would still be undercutting the price of legal weed, and it would still be out.
Well, what you're wrong about is more
that point.
Okay. So, I don't want to cut you off.
Oh no, I was just saying we can't formulate a model to prove your hypothesis, so I would just say that we can't know. So I just push back on that front. But
okay. Yeah, what you're wrong about is that decriminalization isn't meant to get rid of the black market. It's simply meant to take the toll off of the users, because most people who buy from drug dealers aren't a drug user isn't a criminal, or sorry, a drug user isn't using drugs because they're a criminal, and a criminal isn't a criminal just because they're using drugs. So we're trying to separate that, even legally. So I'm probably I'm being a dead horse.
Feline. You do know that legalization is decriminalization, right? The two things are they're kind of different, but if you legalize it, it's essentially decriminalized as well, right?
Okay,
you do know that, right?
Kind of true. So it's kind of true. They're the same. It's kind of different.
No, not in the legal sense, because
He's right. Legalization is decriminalization. Decriminalization is not necessarily legalization. All
Exactly.
legalization is decriminalization.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, he's right.
Okay,
Thank you.
Fanatic,
Thank you.
go ahead. Fanatic, go ahead.
Oh, sure.
And then
Yeah, I
we'll
was
go
just
to
gonna
universities.
respond to feline father. Yeah, so the thing that man, we do this pretty often, and I do it myself. It's a hard thing to overcome, but when you look at this data, you really do have to pay really close attention to the verbiage, right? Because when they start talking about there's still a thriving illegal market for marijuana usage, even after like whatever, the thriving illegal market takes an entirely different form, right? So whereas before there might have been a lot of just sole purpose, a single use distribution, and so on and so forth, like that was what it was. But now what you'll find is that the illegal market is completely transferred to now what you have is illegal grow farms. So a lot of people now that marijuana usage has become extremely more profitable, like simply being able to be a provider, a legal provider and stuff like that, what people start doing is they start like they get one like legal grow farm, and then they start doing illegal grow farms on the side, so then they have like a really like a large volume to be able to sell legally, and so that way they make a lot of profit. I think in the state of California you can literally average about $14,000 like per plant. It's really hyper profitable. So now we're starting to see there's an entirely different market now of just illegal growers, but as far as individual distributors and things like that, that market is absolutely decreasing at a massive rate. So it's just entirely different form. So I was just trying to push back against the idea that, hey, we're still in the middle of like it's because it's not the same kind of thing anymore.
Now I will concede. It's like it's all like based upon like the state legislation and like what like subsidies are put in place, like what taxes are put in place, right? Because I can say with full confidence here in Nevada, right, taxes that were put in place on like legal distributors, right, like totally overinflated the cost of marijuana, and the illegal sale of marijuana here in Nevada is still thriving because of it, right? And the only reason that other states are doing okay with it, get rid of like the illegal sale, like the illegal distribution, is because like the state and or the federal government is subsidizing the marijuana market, right, the legal market, and like that isn't an example of like the free market like doing its thing and then becoming undercutting the illegal price. Is the only reason that they can compete in any way with the illegal market is because of state and federal subsidies.
Yeah, I think Canadian caller addressed that though.
So, okay, great. So we'll go to universities. Before we do that, before we go to him, I wanted him to be able to respond to all of this. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind the audience that if you're enjoying this content, do me a favor, hit the follow button. Right now, hit that follow button, hit that notification bell. So you know I'm going live. We do this 6 days a week. 6 days a week, we give you this content. We give you a lot of content, so you don't want to miss out. Beyond that, $5 to keep this content going and growing. Here, need your assistance with that. We actually gave you quite a lot today. Did the whole Primetime Royale. And hey, it's a lot of effort to do that. That just doesn't happen. It doesn't simply appear on your screen. A lot of effort goes into making that happen. If you want to support that, if you want that kind of content to continue, if you're really loving that, then you gotta help me out. Please, $5 to assist the channel to keep the lights on here. So sub to the channel if you have not done so already. I think we give you a lot of content to deserve that sub. I think you won't regret it with the amount of content we give you. So yes, subs to the channel if you haven't done so already. You can sub for 3 months and save 20%, 6 months saves 30%. Also, if you have a Prime Gaming or a Twitch Prime, you have free sub. Use that sub here on this channel. Use it here. Again, a lot of content for you, and costs you nothing, but you can keep this content alive. So I need your help to do that. So again, sub to the channel if you have not done so already. Help us out. Beyond that, of course, you can donate bits and donate subs, as like 1 or 2 people have done today. And when you sub, of course, you get access to our illustrious emotes. And we'll having more will be coming. I actually was talking about people about getting more, but we're working on it. You get access to ad-free viewing, which is great. And I have been playing ads, so you want to avoid that in the end. I don't know where that last emote's coming from, but definitely not that one. But
Oh, we all know where it's coming
no,
from.
it's not. I don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, if you want to avoid, oh god, it's so fucking ugly. If you want to avoid ads,
You know you love it.
I hate it.
Red
You're
dog.
going to avoid ads. Yes, that's a great way to do it, and of course, get access to our illustrious emotes. But again, need your help, people, to keep this on its own. Of course, you can also go through use a PayPal button below. If you scroll down the screen, you'll find a PayPal button. Great way to donate. Also, exclamation point donate in chat. Another way to make that happen. And of course, our Patreon, which we have launched. If you would like to support the channel through that, if that works for you, then yes, please help us out. Any way you can to help the channel. Been pretty light today, but we seriously put a lot of effort to making this all happen. So if you can help us out, make this channel sustainable, because it's not sustainable without you, the kind donators who've helped us out in the past. Thank you for gifting a hot tier 1 sub, Captain H. It's very much appreciated. Thank you so much.
Bro.
Yeah. We don't if it wasn't for kind of people like that, then none of that's content. Like, go have the Reverie this upcoming Monday. We're putting that together. We get a lot of big streamers coming through there. If you enjoy that type of content, again, subs to the channel, or donate bits, donate subs yourself. We'll also have a bunch of other invite-only panels throughout the week. They'll be great. And we'll have the open panels 6 days a week, open panels just like this. Oh, thank you, the Guru of Reason. Oh, I haven't seen you in quite a long time, actually. I was thinking about you the other day. I've been away too long. I see your message. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was thinking about you. It's been quite a long time since you've been around, but thank you for stopping by. It's awfully kind of you. But what else was I gonna say? Yes, open panels 6 days a week, just like this, where members of our audience, like you, can be involved, can jump on in, and we have these random draw conversations. Thank you, Metaphor. Had fun on Primetime tonight. Oh, thank you, Metaphor. Thank you so much for $25. It's really, really kind of you. Hey, this is the kind of support that keeps this channel alive. Client people like Metaphor, a illustrious mod here, and Guru, who is a good, actually fantastic member of this panel. Previously, the open panel. Hopefully get Guru in the future. But yeah, 6 days a week we have this. And then a bunch of interesting open panels that all had different feels throughout the week, including the Primetime Morale, which we just got through earlier today. So again, help us out. Now's the time. Jump on in. If you haven't done so before, now's the time to do it. Okay, so we'll go to universities.
Well, hold on real quick, Prime.
Yep.
I was going to say, we also have the YouTube channel that we're starting back up, running that. So in case you're not able to watch the stream, you can go check the YouTube channel. The YouTube channel is going to have the highlights, the VODs, and all of that. And we're at 356 subs, and let's take that to the moon, okay?
Started with 334, and now 356. So to the moon. So
yeah, so if you're not subscribed to Prime on YouTube, we've got the link in the chat. Go ahead and just subscribe. It's free.
Yeah, absolutely free. That's a free sub there. But this is the sub here that costs money. Valuable money that keeps us alive. But yeah, please. The YouTube link is in chat. YouTube to find the link right there for you. Check it out. Again, if you missed something, or you want to look back. Once we have like a catalog there, before we want to look back, that would be a great way to do it. We're trying to grow our presence on all social media. One day a TikTok, right? Anyway, I don't know.
Don't you do it? No, don't be a Zoomer. Don't do it.
I'm not gonna do it.
See you do some fucking TikTok dances.
It's not actually gonna happen. But okay. So.
Oh man, if we could get Prime to do a TikTok dance to Rat Dog.
You're out of your fucking mind. Anyway, we'll go to Universe East, who's been waiting patiently. So Universe East, you can respond to anything and everything. Go ahead, unmute it.
Well, I'll just start by saying I just want to apologize to y'all in the chat. The way I was just conducting myself was not an effective method of getting my point across. This is just a really, really touchy subject for me because this is really one of the most, this is one of the largest, like these experiences have impacted me the most in my life, and it's what I'm doing with my life. It's what I'm trying to do. So like me saying, oh, there's no fucking facts and getting all mad and shit, don't do that. Okay, for anybody watching, that's not how you fucking debate with people. So I apologize for that. But I will say, so I've been reading on all this shit, on all the, well, skimming, I'll say skimming over different articles on these things. And the one thing I was saying before, and I'll say again, is that the reason that it's hard for me to take the data as is and say this is how it is, this is what works, this is what doesn't, is because like we've been saying, addiction is an inherently, right now for some reason, shame, like, well, not for some reason, there's multiple reasons, but it's just people feel shame for their addiction. That's what it is. It's just how it is. I mean, they're not everybody feels the same levels of shame, but that's really a big deal. When you go to a rehab, that's a lot of what they talk about is getting over that and accepting who you are and being honest and then wanting to change it. Now, the problem is that when you take evidence, and what I was trying to say is that, like, you know, if somebody came up even when I was trying to get clean, even when I was getting clean, if somebody came up, like what they do with rehabs, right? They'll do these things called callbacks. So after you leave, they'll call you after a couple of months and be like, hey, are you clean still? And even if you're not clean, you always say you are. Why? It doesn't matter. Like it wouldn't matter if you told them you were, like, they can't bring you back. It's not a forced thing. So saying, you know, like saying the truth like doesn't even matter, but people will inherently, because it's still just such a, people have grown up thinking that, you know, addiction, you should feel shame for being addicted, like, you know, and it's like this old way of thinking. It's not how we should look at things. Now, when I bring up the personal aspects of it, like proposing the question, like, what if you had a cousin or a significant other or something that was sold this drug, even if it wasn't a young kid, it could be anybody, you know, brother, sister, whatever. The reason I say that is because this is a very personal topic. These, you know, this topic is not, you can't deduce how to, I can't sit here and propose a solution because there, in my mind, I don't know if there really fucking is, without making just everything okay for everybody all the time. Because the fact of the matter is like multiple people are saying, you're filling holes in your life with these drugs, right? Like caffeine, and the other thing, like, you know, we're talking about natural shit. Not everything natural is good. Caffeine, I would say, is natural. It's one of the most addictive substances on the planet, and caffeine can fucking kill you if you take enough of it. You can have a fucking heart attack, you know. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here drinking it, but the reason I can't just sit here and be like, oh, you're right because Portugal did this and that. Well, they've been in a fucking economic recession for the last 10 years. Also, when I was reading the data, lifetime usage of drugs in that country since decriminalization has gone up 40 or 50%. So you could argue the opposite, that people have stopped doing drugs. It's just they've stopped doing it in an earlier age, and now it's just like when they're older, they're doing it, which, you know, to be fair, might be a better, I don't know. I don't think, in my opinion, there's certain drugs that just shouldn't be around, right? And when I say natural drugs, I'm meaning like literally the things that grow the fuck out of the ground. So literally just, in my opinion, weed and shrooms. Now, again, like, you know, if you don't into psychedelics, that's fine. Like, you don't have to fucking do drugs. If you lead a really happy and if you lead a fulfilling life, most people don't need to do drugs, right? Like, so the problem is that you have these areas, and it's all over everywhere. There's poverty everywhere, where, you know, these people feel like they're in a rut. They're stuck. They can't. There's nothing they can do with their life at this point, even if they've never been in the system. Even if there's plenty of addicts that have never and will never go to jail because they're really good liars, or they're really good at hiding it, or whatever. Or you have, you know, personally speaking, I think alcohol should be fucking illegal. Alcohol will, I mean, alcohol related deaths are one of the they're in the top 10. I mean, it's ridiculous how many people die from alcohol related deaths. Like, for instance, like you would be surprised to know that the sport that kills the most people is technically fishing, because people get drunk on boats and fall off and drown or get hit by the propeller and shit. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's like personally speaking, I think alcohol should be fucking banned. I fucking hate alcohol, but like when I get really personal about this because this is what I'm like revolving my life around. I go and speak to people about this. Now I usually don't have debates on this, so I'm not in that. It's not really in my wheelhouse to debate, but and I'm not saying that none of y'all have been through anything. Okay, that's not. I don't know any of y'all personally, so I don't know what y'all have been through. I'm not going to sit here and say that, but I will say it is extremely hard for someone like me that's been through it, and for anybody that I know that's been through it. If I have a friend here with me, he'd probably say the same thing. I don't know why I just said that, but it's just really hard for somebody that's been through that to sit here and listen to evidence, because we as drug addicts know that, like I said, we're liars inherently. Like it's just what we do. We
No,
lie,
come on,
we
dude.
steal, no. It is.
Come on,
Okay?
I've been a drug addict too.
So you've been, you smoked weed, and
No,
you're
I've
not saying that you
been
don't.
fucking cocaine,
Okay, that's
man.
fine.
I've
And
been the
you,
drugs too.
okay,
Don't
and
tell
you've
me what I
never,
have
and
done.
you've never lied. You've never been a liar when you've been doing drugs.
Yeah, of course I've lied. What's your fucking
Okay,
point?
and that's my point, is that
I'm not a liar
people
now,
that
though.
because of that. I'm not saying you are. I'm not saying that people that do drugs they're the liars of the world. I'm saying that when you are involved in an addiction, right? When you are doing the drugs, when you are addicted, when you're doing cocaine, you're not walking around the streets going like, I'm a cocaine addict. Hey guys, look at me. I do cocaine. Hey, want to fucking pop a vein with me? Like, that's not what you do. You hide it. You don't put it
So
out
you
there.
think that we should definitely make sure that people hide it more by
absolutely not.
making it so that you just want to live in a world where cocaine doesn't exist.
He's trying to explain.
No, I'm trying to say that, well, personally speaking, yeah, I would love to be. Wouldn't you like to live in a world where these drugs don't
Well,
exist?
yeah, but I think that I was gonna say
Is
that's
it
a little
is it
magical
possible?
thinking.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would say that. True. Yeah, you're right. I'm not saying that. I'm not going to sit here
Okay,
and
well-
paint this fantasy land where we can live in a world without drugs, right? But I do think that the amount of drugs is proportionate to the poverty. So, like when you have extreme poverty rates in certain cities, you can see that there's. I mean, maybe not on paper, I don't know, but I can see. Poor people do more drugs. It's just how it is. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that's, like rich people don't do drugs. They fucking do. Okay. You ask anybody. I mean, shit, Anthony Bourdain did acid like over 500 fucking times. You would never look at him and go, oh yeah, that's a fucking, he drips. But my whole point is that the reason I guess the reason I was getting upset is because I don't want people to just assume, okay, like this is how it works. You have to understand that in anything, right? Like, but specifically this point, like the data that we're going off of right at this point, I don't think can be 100% trusted. Is it worth looking at? For sure. I was reading over the article, and there was some significant evidence to the point that it might help. I'm not saying that it wouldn't, but what I'm saying is like when you need to put yourself in the predicament as much as possible and think about, do you want people being, is it, yes, well, you're decriminalizing these drugs and like the stigma might go away, which I don't think it would. I think the legal stigma, yeah, but like people will still think if you do meth and heroin that you're like a fucking, you're an addict, you're gonna fuck me over, you're gonna steal from me, you're gonna do this. That is what people think. Okay, my family thinks that about me. I can tell you, like,
why? Oh, hold on. Here's a
it's
good
not because
question
it's
for you.
legal. It's because of the actions
Why do
you
you
take when you're doing it.
hold on? Why do you think that if you do meth or do heroin or become a drug addict, that your family looks at you differently and thinks that you're going to steal from them?
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that everybody.
You just said that.
My
But okay.
family. I said my family.
Well, I think that's universal. I agree with that. My family would definitely look at me like that. In fact, as somebody with a whole fucking ton of family who either were heroin addicts or are heroin addicts, yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. So
I think if you can educate people, though, and that's my biggest thing. I don't think
I
we have enough
agree with
people
education. Not a single person here has said we should definitely. I think what you're equating legalization with promotion of drug use. Nobody here is promoting anybody go out and do heroin. And I don't think anybody in their in their right mind would promote something like that. And I don't think that legalization is promoting drug use, and that's kind of how you're taking it. And like this whole thing, I get it, dude. Like I get that drugs have impacted your life, dude. My entire fucking family on my mom's side has been drug addicts. I get it, dude. Like I fucking get it. And I myself have gone through a drug addiction. So I get it. Please don't sit here and preach. So please don't say, hold on, man, hold on.
So would you say that if it was decriminalized,
Universities, go on. Universities.
Being more available?
Universities. Hold on. Let me finish, okay? Finish your point, Captain Aegis. Then we're gonna move on because we gotta get to other people.
Yeah, totally. No, and I was just, I just wanted to say, like, please don't, like, act like your experience. I hate to say this, but it's not like. It's not something that people don't go through. It's pretty common, man. Unfortunately.
Exactly.
And I feel for you. And like anyway, yeah, we can.
Okay, so Marcy, then Ninetales, and then I'll decide what we'll do from there. Marcy, you're muted.
No, it's not my turn. Yeah, it's Marcy. She's muted or something.
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah. So I don't want to come off condescending. I apologize if I did earlier. I'm super tired. I don't want to like dogpile you, right? So I'm going to keep this short. Just for what you said about alcohol. Okay. So if like personal experiences we're going off of, I was like a functioning alcoholic for like 2 years, right? Like I have a really terrible spotty relationship with alcohol, right? But as bad as my personal relationship with alcohol has been, I don't want it to be illegal because we tried that in the 20s. And it went horribly. Like it went horribly. And I think that looking at the effects of prohibition and the effects that had on like crime in America and the effects that had on law enforcement in America and a whole bunch of other issues that prohibition caused, bootlegging and speakeasies and all of that stuff, right? There are analogies there that are perfectly analogous, if not like almost perfectly analogous to the way we talk about substance use today in terms of like Schedule 1s and illegal drugs, right? So we have historical data on this from America in largely the same situation, right? So that's just something to mull over. Really quickly, I just want to tell you that I understand the concern about like drug users lying about whether or not they're still using, but the data does account for that. The people who do these studies aren't just asking people; it's done like on kind of a live-in basis, So they would know if they were like lying about it. That's.
I mean, I would say it's kind of a stretch to assume that. There's nothing that's been said on anything that I've read so far that said these people live with these people.
Yeah, but
they just passed it to survey,
no,
like
I know,
else.
but like academic studies like this, like big kind of coagulates like this, are normally done over like multiple different kind of periods and stretches and stuff, and they don't really just go out and ask people.
I mean, maybe I don't know how it was conduced. Also, I don't know if I said like we should make alcohol legal. I didn't really mean like that. I do kind of like wish that I lived in this, or that we all lived in this fantasy world. I do kind of have that like want to live in this fantasy world where like there is none of that shit. That's what I really meant. I wish alcohol wasn't a fucking thing. Not that it should be illegal. I just wish. I do kind of like wish for like the unicorn, so to speak, where like these things aren't even a fucking actual substance in the world. That's what I could.
I'm so
lost. No, that's interesting. That's interesting to me, and I want to pass the baton over to somebody else. Ninetales been waiting for a long time. A lot of other people have been waiting, but just really quickly, if I can give you one more like little thing to kind of challenge you, let you think about, right? I noticed that because of this personal experience, and I struggled with this too with alcohol, right? We assign certain moral characteristics to chemicals that are in and of themselves morally neutral. And I just want you to think about why you do that. All right. I want you to think about whether or not that's like the chemical itself that is getting that. Because like meth, right? We give people Adderall for ADHD. We give people Adderall for like, we give college students Adderall for focusing on their tests, right? And that's largely societally accepted, right? And people don't go crazy after that. So I just want you to think about like, is it something about the chemical compounds itself in the drug that is like immoral or bad to you? Or is it the effect that it has? And are there ways we can mitigate that effect without necessarily like just vanishing all of the drug, which I don't think you're advocating for. I know that's a fantasy world. I wish we lived in that too, right? And I also wish there was no war and everybody was friends, right? But
exactly.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. There are ways we can address this, and There's
Yeah,
David.
Okay.
no, I mean,
okay. So sorry. We gotta go to Nine Tails. We've been waiting. Go to Nine Tails.
I gotta go pee.
Good luck.
I think everybody got muted like for a minute and they don't know that they're unmuted or that they can unmute.
Oh, I'm pushed to talk, unfortunately, because you would hear like me just doing way too much shit back here, and it's horrible.
Nine Tails.
What are we talking about? I'm so lost.
I mean, we can move on.
We're talking
Hold on,
about
Nine Tails. Hold on. Nine Tails.
Yeah, so
Listen, I'm just here
that
drawing a cat on my iPad.
Okay, that's wonderful. I find the interesting that you're calling things a fantasy. To me, there's several aspects of what you're talking about that are fantastical. Actually, one of the first ones can be addressed by your own advice that you gave us, which is to not like just make assumptions and take them for granted. Essentially, I agree with that. You've definitely got to criticize your own positions, and in your case, one of the things that you seem to be doing is taking for granted human behavior, and particularly aspects of human behavior that you don't have true explanations for, but you're just making assumptions on, I'm guessing, based on your own personal experience. But in reality, nobody who's ever used personal experience to explain human behavior has ever actually explained human behavior well. We either need to come from a biological standpoint or an empirical standpoint, which I don't think you've satisfied either of those criteria. And you're ultimately characterizing people a lot that way by doing it. The other thing that's fantastical is assuming that these drugs are going to magically go away off the streets, or that addicts are somehow going to magically get better by doing the same thing that got us to this point. It's doing the same thing, expecting different results. And people say that defines various categorizations of detrimental thinking. All I'm going to say is that you really do need to think of something better than just the status quo if you don't want things to be the way that they already are.
Well, I'm not sitting here like I've already said multiple times. I don't know what to do about this shit. I don't think my personal experiences speak for everybody, but I don't think that you can get enough data on this or accurate enough data. Is my point. And I'm not using the drugs to characterize people, right? But people do.
Sorry.
Huh?
Like, what if like, you know, you
We
think
don't have
it's
to
possible?
harp on this forever, though. I mean, like, right? Like, I'm not sure how much more we can get out of this.
Yeah, I mean, there's not really a real solution to this.
Well, actually, he brought up something I forgot to mention, which is that you can either like just stop collecting data because it seems impossible, but like a real statistician and a real scientist would actually say, well, we're just going to make it as easy as possible to collect the data, which means not stigmatizing it more through institutional means, even if it is going to be socially stigmatized no matter what. And then like the scientists would specifically say, okay, we need to factor out the variable of the fact that people might lie, which means you put more emphasis on the data of confirmed drug users than people who deny the fact that they're a drug user. That's all.
Yeah, and also I want to say my whole thing is not towards the users. Again, that's not my thing. And the reason I would love to actually I actually wanted to ask this question earlier.
Why?
I mean, I like to y'all. I was just curious, like literally out of curiosity.
I don't know. I feel like we've really hit this one hard.
Yeah, it's pretty much there's pretty much not going to be a solution to it. But I was just curious, like what y'all would. If somebody did sell a drug to your significant other, somebody you care about, and they died, what would you want to happen to that person that sold them? If you could do something, if something could happen, what would be the solution to them? How would you fix that?
But we don't design the justice system based on people's vendetta.
No, I know. I'm not saying a vendetta. I'm saying like would you put them in jail? Would you like an actual thing that can happen? Not like I'm going to string them up by their fucking toenails on a tree. Like no, like something that you could legitimately propose as a means to an end for that. Like what would y'all think would be an appropriate solution to that?
6 months in a reformation facility.
I mean, yeah. But if we classify
this is just curious. I'm just wondering what y'all's personal opinions on it would be. If your mom died from somebody selling them heroin, you know, even if it wasn't laced with anything, let's just say she overdosed on it because she did too much, but she was sold that drug. What would you want to have happen to the person distributing it?
Everyone here wants to penalize the dealers.
I would probably want that person to die, but that's why we have laws. We have
Yeah,
laws.
yeah,
So that
I don't know that person's socioeconomic context, so I can't say what put them into that situation to make them do that. It's not my right to wish
like anything justice upon them. What's done is done. That's what I think. I don't know.
Nobody
Also,
here is
also,
criminalizing the
also,
dealer.
if we classify drug abuse as like mental illness, like people should be treated for that, like depression, should we have, if somebody fucks your family member up, like their spouse cheats on them and takes the fucking kids and they kill themselves because they get depressed, like how different is this situation than from selling drugs to some other person and they become addicted? Like in the same way, somebody's causing somebody else like immense harm and they die, and it's like kind of like the same, it's like both of those are like mental illnesses. Somebody can become depressed of how other people treat them, you know. But we
I
can't
guess
really
I was
do-
going for like, how would you keep them from? What would you want that to happen to like get them to not sell anymore? How would you change their mind? That's what I'm curious about. Like, I'm not saying
Rehabilitation.
what would your personal justice be, but what rehabilitation? How that's shown not to work. That's not going to change.
That seems like such a big straw man. You're just asking us to solve
No,
every single problem that you're
I'm
posing.
asking your personal. I'm asking your personal opinion. What you would want to have happen. I'm just curious.
I can't. I'm not going to try to convince somebody who's one of like you're posing. One of my family members is selling drugs. Well, I'm supposed to convince them out of selling drugs? Fuck, they're doing that with their own life. It's not my goddamn fucking job to do that.
I'm saying like you're saying. Okay, for instance, Captain, right? Your family does a lot of drugs apparently. Like if one of them passed away or overdosed on the drug that they were given by their dealer, what would you like to have happened? Yeah, so what? I'm sure you thought about this. What? Yeah, as much as you'd want to kill him, but like I'm talking about within the confines of the law. Like, how would we fix that problem?
Well, first, I think they were also dealing. So I think they were
That's
getting
fine,
high
but
on
I'm
their
talking about
own
maybe the
supply.
ones
So
that
I don't know if that it really pertains to the situation. But
okay.
but I get the question. I get the question.
Yeah.
Like I said, if somebody, if my mom was doing heroin and the person who sold her heroin laced it with fentanyl and then she died because of this, I would want them to die. Yes. Of course.
But they don't really
That's why we have
deserve that,
laws.
right?
I believe there's laws on the book for this exact thing, my dude. Like this is not
Well, yeah,
something
there
that
is, but
nobody
I'm
has
saying-
thought of.
but I'm saying,
Like, I'm
like,
pretty sure
I'm
they would
saying-
get 5 years. That seems about right. Like in
No,
prison,
well,
yeah,
you-
and there should be instead of prison, we should have something like a reformation place where they go to reform themselves and get real help instead of being fucking punished. I agree with all that fucking
okay,
shit.
So
But like, come on,
instead of going to prison, the people that are distributing should go to like their own form of rehabilitation because I mean, a lot of the people that sell don't use. It's like they don't get high on your own supply. I mean, that's not like a real all the time thing. It's not everybody that sells doesn't use, but I'm saying, you know what I mean, right? So
okay,
they should go
it
to
seems
their
like a
own
straw man to just continuously.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's move on.
That's what I'm saying.
Actually, thank you, Fanatic.
Okay,
I just want to say one quick thing. One quick thing. Like, I think all of us would agree with this statement, right? Like, if this is something that you're incredibly passionate about and it's something that you really want to do, it's obvious you're very passionate about it. We need people to be more passionate about this. That's where you're really good, because in this case, then you will probably take the steps. Like, we're having like mental games and talking about theoretical implications about things and like just kind of positing about it. But you're actually doing some of the real leg work to go out and actually talk to people. It's a commendable thing. I think a lot more people are affected by drug usage than you may know. I've talked about it like sparingly within the confines of this conversation. My dad was a drug addict. It greatly impacted the lives of myself and my siblings. So like we all might have some more close or looser associations with drug usage of various kind. But it's in your best interest. It's in your best interest if you're going to start having opinions about these things, and this is going to be a part of the broader conversation, for you to be as informed about it as possible, not just on how much drugs not just through your empirical experience from using drugs, but on the data side about what the active solution should be. So, because no one should be more prepared for answers to what the solutions would be and all of that than you, a person who like actually wants to make this a thing. So don't let the research stop with this conversation. Take it upon yourself to do as much research to other countries within this country, to different ideologies about what the proper solution is. Because from it sounds like this entire conversation, you've been saying over and over, you don't know what the solution is. And none of us know for sure what the solution is, but a lot of us have ideas based off of experiences or based off of other experiments in other countries and within our own country where we've seen different results. So just do a lot of research, really wrestle with the data, so then you won't be stuck in loops of like, having these conflicts of like inner experiences and whatever and yada 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 and personal bias and all those things. Like it's better just to have data so that you can really form a really solid opinion.
Okay, so I want to go to Canadian, and then maybe back to the original question that I asked, because there's more people who joined in afterwards. So maybe we'll go back to my original question. I'll go ahead, Canadian.
First of all, I'm gonna apologize for raising my voice at you. We should try to do better with each other. I'm really curious. Like, I just want this to be like yes or no, like not like a huge thing.
It's not going to be that. It's not going to be that. It's not going to be that. I'm telling you, it's not going to be that. Holy crap! Holy shit! Shut up! No, we're not going to be that. No, don't worry.
Okay. I Prime wins.
Okay. Anyway, moving on. So, Fnatic, you weren't here when I originally asked the question, so I'll ask that, and if not, we can move on to something else completely differently. That's fine.
Yes.
You weren't here when I asked a question about, like, since Virginia looks like it's going to be the 16th state to decriminalize marijuana. Do you think that we'll have marijuana decriminalized during Biden's first administration? Like, I mean, nationwide.
I was here when you answered that question. And
did I?
You know what? Well, I wasn't in the channel yet.
Okay.
I was just listening. Remember? Because I was waiting to find out if y'all.
We went way off the rails on that. Shit, that's my fault.
No, but it's all good. So to be honest with you, I've actually used that argument within our panel when we like on the All Black Everything panel that happens on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern. I had talked about that several times about how the decriminalization in Oregon was like particularly inspiring to me, because in the same sense, like that was literally my talking point. But in the same sense, we saw when it came to like abortion. When it came to like Roe v. Wade, we noticed that like various states were like, decriminalizing blah, 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 blah. And then eventually the Supreme Court jumps in and jumps on board with that. Same thing happened with same-sex marriage. We started noticing that more and more states started supporting it. And then as more and more states started supporting it, then we started recognizing that eventually the Supreme Court stepped in. I remember when I had that debate with Destiny, like that was one of the biggest contentions, which was just asinine to me. It's like the idea is that a lot of times people's morality and ethics do flow downstream from legalization and society. This is what happens. So now I get that like our morality and ethics can inform the law, but there are plenty of people who will just automatically take on the beliefs of their society. Like the society says X, therefore I believe X. And so I think the idea that various states are doing it, the more interaction people have with these things, the less stigma is associated with these things, then the more likely it is that people start feeling once their attitudes change, then their will change, their voting habits change. The talking points change, and then in order for a politician to maintain their constituency, they have to be able to get behind those beliefs. So the more legalization we have, the more interaction people will have, the less demonization, the less stigmatization. And so yes, I think within this 4-year period, if not this 4 years, whoever the next president is, it will happen. I feel like I'd confidently make a $2,000 bet to anybody that wants to make that we will have legalization within the next 8 years.
Okay.
I second that, but $100.
Okay, so
I'm not going to ball that.
Reedster, you want to say something?
Yeah, so I
Okay.
live in
Oh, God.
Dallas. Sorry,
Please
excuse
don't.
me. Sorry.
Don't do that, please.
Sorry. No, I gotta upper.
Oh, wait, did you say Dallas? What part of Dallas?
Collin County.
Oh, dude, wait, what? Are you legit?
McKinney.
Like, I went to fucking Frisco High School, bro.
Oh, that's
Dude, you're right next door.
Yeah, dude.
So
Wait,
I go to
wait,
school.
do you know Pecan Lodge, the barbecue restaurant?
Anyway,
Oh,
I probably
bro.
don't. Anyway, but I go to school in Canada, so I was there during legalization. And I'm from the most conservative area in Canada, in Alberta, and the PSAs there, like the Conservative Party, hated weed until the second it got legalized. After it got legalized, you never heard a thing about it. And Alberta actually took the free market reform, like free everybody, open up whatever dispensaries like Oklahoma did. And it spread like wildfire, and it just like everybody got on board with like getting high and just having like weed around. Same thing with Oklahoma too. Like they just totally like wiped the floor with as far as Texas goes with medicinal stuff. the one thing that's crazy to me since that's happened, and this is anecdotal, but I live in like country club Republican territory, is like all of my friends' parents are more on board with like the medicinal free market form of it than at least full decriminalization right now. Well, I guess full recreational. So I don't believe that it'll happen federally. But I definitely think because the second that I view Biden doing that, the whole landscape down here is going to go, well, we're going to enforce our criminal laws, blah, blah, blah. But I think it'll be a fight, but I don't think it'll happen federally. I think it's still like a little bit of a stretch. I don't know though.
That was crazy when Dallas got decriminalized, man.
And it's still not Eddie Garcia. He's our new Dallas police chief. He just brought in this huge thing on thing. He's like, here's what 2 ounces of weed looks like. This is what was being sold. And I was like, dude, what? Like after all this, like
Well,
saw
it's stupid that it's like it'll be legal, right? Like medically, but it's still federally
So,
illegal. That
yeah.
shit makes no
Go
sense.
ahead, Canadian. You want to say something else?
Yeah, so like 3 hours ago when we started this topic, someone made a really good comparison between the acceptance of gay marriage and the velocity of change. So, for anyone who doesn't know, in 2016, when Obama ran, in his book Audacity of Hope, he was really cagey on the whole like gay marriage issue. But by 2008, 2 years later, he was full on pro for it because he realized that there was a political advantage to doing so. So there could be pushback right now, but once people start seeing the money come in, once they see the popularity, because polling on this shows that legalization of marijuana is widely popular, certain places notwithstanding, this is going to be an overnight thing.
Thab?
I just wanted to just a quick clarification. Obama did not support gay marriage publicly in 2008. Period. Full stop. In debate with McCain, he literally said he believes marriage belongs between a man and a woman.
Mm-hmm.
He did not come out. Biden came out in favor of it publicly before Obama did. And that was in, I believe, someone correct me, it was before 2015, but it was like probably 2012, probably 2013.
No, it was before the election. It was before the election. And
it was right before their
2012.
second term election.
Yeah.
So it was probably 2011,
It was
2012.
2012.
Biden
2012.
came out
Yeah.
first in favor of it, and then Obama went along with that. But he was not in favor of it in
Yeah,
2008.
so it was a few months before the election. It was like early in the year.
Like in a bar,
It was
like Biden went
April.
to Stonewall like during Pride Month, and then he like made the proclamation that he was in favor of gay marriage.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was probably like June of 2012, probably.
Yeah, something.
If I had to give the guess, it was probably June of 2012.
Yeah, something like that. There was an interview, and he came out, and it was like a big thing. It was like, oh wow. But then the Obama administration, I think they even froze him out. They froze Biden out for a bit. Because they were so pissed that he got ahead of Obama. Obama was gonna more like cynically use it for campaign purposes, right? So he was planning. They had scheduled to come out, but he wanted to do it like just before the election, just like make it like a whole big thing. Like, oh wow, Obama came out for it finally, right? I mean, we knew this guy wasn't like ideologically against it, right? But he just wanted to have this big surprise before the election to boost his numbers. But then Biden like goofed and said it beforehand. And they got like super fucking pissed. Yeah, they got really goddamn pissed about that. And then it was soon afterwards. I forget how soon afterwards. But Obama was like, "Oh yeah, I guess me too. Sure." Took all the wind out of his sails.
Yeah,
It's
imagine
pretty
like
hilarious.
gay marriage is state legal, but like federally illegal, and you could just have people
Well, it wasn't-
reporting
it
these
wasn't-
like marriages
yeah.
going on.
Well, that's the difference between not to like get in like, but just
No,
like
I know, I was
drugs.
just-
Yeah. It's just it's a difference.
Go ahead,
It's just thinking about like somebody being like, "Oh, excuse me,
Feline.
there are two guys getting married in my town," and the feds just like bust in on their
Feline, please. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I absolutely think it's gonna go one or good like federally fucking illegal. Because I think it's gonna tie into like Biden's whole dealy do of like telling the Justice Department to tell private persons to go fuck themselves. I think it's gonna be a big part of it. And like the plan to go forward with it. Just because like and like honestly, just again like I said, like they were already making moves like even under the Trump administration to like legalize it federally. I see them continuing with it. That being said, I'm a peace out. Feline father. Also, Obama can have these nuts. You know what I'm saying? Boom. I'm out.
Okay,
What?
sure, whatever.
The fuck?
That's the thing that happened. Okay. So if you guys want to talk about something else, let me know. If something on your mind that you want to discuss. Anything?
Yeah, I like because I'm taking Canadian federal government right now. Like we're studying Canadian federalism, and it's like totally different there how the parties allocates like their issues. They're not related. Like the NDP isn't related to provincial NDPs at all. They're completely separate. And I know it's the same with state Democratic and Dems here, but I often find the issue of like when people talk about education and stuff, and like it's like very broadly always federal politics, and I feel like sometimes people aren't like aware and like what's going on with like their local stuff. I don't know if that's something to talk about or like.
Well, I only vote for president, so I don't know what. I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know.
I don't know.
We're gonna start talking about politics, and I got a dipstick because I don't know shit. I really don't know anything about politics.
Yeah. But I think I mean, it's true that we don't actually discuss these things on a local
because
level.
the nuance.
Right.
Yeah. So, no, I was just going to say because the nuances of like state board, who's running for your school board is something that is usually above the heads of most people. Like I have a friend who actually works in the election department in San Francisco, and the nuances of it when he talks about it, I swear to God, if it doesn't bore me straight to sleep, I don't know what else will.
I wouldn't say it's like above people's heads, right? Like these things are easily to like understand. It's just that taking the time to educate yourself. I mean, it's easier just doing federal and I'll straight up, like I'm not going with local politics in my neck of the woods. I'm just not, because it takes it takes so much time just to keep track of federal what's happening on the federal level, but on the state level, one where there's just less information because our news agencies have been held out, right? Like there's not as many journalists, period, or newspapers, period, actually doing these stories, right? So there's less of the information out there, right? So it's harder to find it, and then to keep track of that on top of like everything else, like it's a fucking lot. And then that's state, and then there's local, which is another level, right? So like, and then you're asking, oh yeah, school board too. That's a lot. That's like a lot.
Okay, I actually kind of have a proposal. Well, it's probably a stupid question. Well, first of all, I want to kind of, I don't know how the what's it called, the electoral college works specifically. I don't know how the fuck how that works. I've never had anybody explain it to me where I've been like, oh, okay, I get it now.
I could explain it to you really quickly.
I would love to learn, but I was just curious. Like, I've always wondered, do you think that the country would run better, or a country, let's say, like maybe not this one specifically, but any country would run better if literally the people decided everything, like just straight up vote count, right? Like, I don't think so, because personally speaking, I think there's like, I should not have an opinion in politics. My vote really should not count because I don't know enough, right? Like I could just vote because I just like the way the dude looks, which I've done a couple of times. Right, like I just like his swag. Like I didn't know anything about Obama, but I just fucking like the way he carried himself and the way he talked. Like, so my opinion really shouldn't matter. But like, I'm just curious. Like, is there a world or a country where that could potentially work by giving enough information if people did have the information readily available to them, or is the electoral college necessary? Because a lot of people, I think, don't understand it, but also I want to know how.
So this is a bit of a this is a bit like a derail from what Reitzer was asking, right? Is that talking about local politics and I mean, electoral college is pretty simple. It's pretty simple, right?
I listened to the video. Yeah, the video.
But he's talking about like mixed member plurality voting.
I gave you a
right?
video. Hey, Universe East, there's a video. Watch the video. It's 5 minutes long. Put it on 2.5. I mean, on 2 speed. It'll be like 2.5 minutes, and then you'll understand.
Did you send it to me DMs? Okay.
Yes, it's in your DMs. There you go. Watch that.
It kind of had something similar. Like people are always like, the multi-party system will save us, or like, if only we had a multi-party system. And I don't think we have the civics education here to like know how that would benefit us or even how it could hurt us. Like Israel's had 6 elections in the past 2 years. Like, do we think that Americans could handle that sort of discourse, that amount of election over and over again if we can't agree? I don't know.
I think it would be like with multi-party systems. I think honestly, in one way, I honestly think that we have a form of a multi-party system, in that each party, Republicans and Democrats, they have their own factions within each party. It's just those factions don't use the power that they have. Like just as a simple, easy example for those of us here to understand, the progressives in the House and the Progressive Caucus, they hold enough votes to deny the Democratic caucus a majority vote in the House. So if the progressives truly wanted to, they could be like, we are not supporting, just like Joe Manchin and Sinema in the Senate are basically this wall of moderatism against progressive change, against progressive movement, and out of the Senate, because they won't vote for something unless it aligns with their politics. Why won't the progressives do the same? And if they do that, it's similar that a multi-party system works in that this party's, this one party, it's similar. I'm not saying it's the same. I'm not saying it's the same. I am saying that the concept of why people think a multi-party system works better, even though in practice it literally probably doesn't, is that this group supports these policies, this group supports those policies, and if that you need to sort of like have an agreement on a policy to go forward. It's just that these factions within each party don't always pull the levers of power that they hold. I mean, the Tea Party did so with the GOP. They did that.
There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, though. Look, it's really
Yeah.
simple, right? Because at the end of the day, there's like coalition building. Coalition building is the game of politics, right? And even though you have all of these like different parties with like that are under like that might be actually somewhat like subversive to like the overall party, like in some of their ideology, right? Like because like the Democrat Party is like the hyper establishment, and then like a lot of a lot of like the leftists within the party are not about any of that business, right? But at the end of the day, you're still running underneath the Democratic banner. And if they were to sit there and be like, yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and vote against like these things, optically it would look so terrible for them when it came to re-election. They wouldn't be able to get it. So as much as we want to say like they have the power to stop a vote, in doing so, it's like legitimate political suicide.
But here's then my sort of counter to that. Why then is it okay in some sense for Joe Manchin and Sinema to essentially say we don't support a $15 minimum wage? Why then is it okay for them to? Why is it okay for them to do that and them not be threatened to be primaried like the progressives would if they said no, we're not going to vote for a $15 minimum wage because we want it to be $20?
Well, that's because the voters in those states are incredibly conservative.
Exactly.
And they won't vote for somebody who's any more progressive than Joe Manchin.
It's one part the establishment, but it's also one part those people's
establishment. I'm sorry. You just said a keyword, and establishment is one of those keywords that when I hear it, all I hear is them or they. You know, you have to be a little more specific than that.
No, it's sort of like Fanatic was saying, like the party, like sort of like the party line is X. Sort of like that if you are running as a Democrat, you should be supporting X, Y, or Z. And if you don't, then you should be primary.
So what makes you think Joe Manchin would be in 2021 would be against marijuana reform?
I mean, we're kind of off that topic, but I mean, I don't think that he
Wasn't that what you were just saying? You were literally just saying that Joe Manchin is the one.
No, I was talking about $15 minimum wage. I was not.
Oh, $15 minimum wage.
Yeah,
that's never gonna get passed, buddy. That shit's out.
Yeah. So like that. So like, and like what Fanatic was saying is sort of on one part, it's that the party will put pressure on you, but on the other part, it's your constituents. AOC can be as progressive as she wants because her district is like plus 20 gazillion Democrat. She's not gonna lose her seat. She really won't. But Joe Manchin, being in a D+1, +2, slightly leaning state, has to be a moderate. So there's multiple layers to it. But I was just sort of, to get back to my main point, is that I think that we kind of have some sense of a multi-party system, but we just don't. People don't use it in the way that they could.
Okay.
They could do it better. I'm not saying they should outright just vote against something on the floor.
Ninetales.
All right, I'm probably going to get going after this. For those who have liked what I've had to say tonight, I'm going to post my Twitter in the chat after, and you can always follow me. And of course, subscribe to Prime both here on Twitch and on his YouTube, which I'm sure one of his mods will link as I'm speaking. So yeah, recently the Ford government of Ontario, so this is a provincial government, Doug Ford is our premier. He's a conservative, and they recently just pushed to get rid of ranked choice voting. Now, the thing is that people are really starting to hate Doug Ford, even conservatives. So I think this was a very strategic thing to do and something to examine within multi-party systems, is that the best thing you can do is ranked choice voting if you want to keep out these sort of like monopolies or cornered political systems, is give people ranked choice voting, because then people can say, and then when you have multiple parties, someone who's a conservative can say, well, I don't like the Liberals, but at least they're better than the NDPs, instead of saying, well, I just can't vote NDP and there's no other in between, that sort of thing. So when we see that, like, it's one thing to just say on the surface, okay, ranked choice voting is great, but when we see that like conservative politicians who have a lot to lose in the next election are trying to get rid of it for political strategy, it says a lot to me that it is very effective in these kind of dynamics to like give voters more power to find alternatives.
Thanks, Ninetales. You said you're going to put your link in Twitter link in chat. Yeah. Everyone, go follow Ninetales. Thanks so much for being here. Great. So, Canadian caller.
Yeah. So the argument for like a ranked choice system over just like a first past the post typically is that you can vote for your true intention and then make your second choice the most politically viable option, instead of just playing this like prisoner's dilemma where you're strategically voting against the worst outcome that you would want. In theory, what that does is that it makes more niche parties more politically viable. Currently, the way I understand it, Bernie Sanders is a Democrat solely because he would be unelectable as an independent. But if we were to change that system, the idea is that we could have those differences between like the Progressive Caucus and the corporate Democrats more easily articulated in American society, and then those weird contradictions where like progressives have to vote for like corporate dem policies would occur less. Like that's the idea.
Thank you.
And that oops, sorry.
Oh, please go ahead, restart.
And that's like, at least whenever I'm a Canadian voter, that's the one thing I got to vote for my first time in the federal election, or the Alberta provincial election, then the federal. I was really blown away by like how people think Canada's two-party when like the Liberals and Conservatives are the only ones that have ever held power. And it was funny that Trudeau walked back his like multi-party promise like so fast in 2019, because they knew that it would hurt them by having all the voting out in the East. But I don't know if it's something like here in Texas. I think it could be done. Like I think it's definitely I know in some states like San Francisco, whoever is saying that, I know it is a thing. But it gets sticky though. Like it can get sticky really fast, and especially like when you broaden that up through our just confusing state and local and then federal. It is confusing. The only thing that I guess would be challenging about it would be like, okay, if there's a president, but then if there's deadlocked houses of Congress with different parties, like that would just be a dead right there. I don't know. It's sticky.
Yeah, I think the issue of getting moderate voters to become a little more progressive is one of those issues of like, I think it's happening over time, and I think we're going to see it over time, but we're not going to be able to do it in tomorrow. It's just maybe like, I think that there's certain things that we can do, and I think that marijuana legalization is one of them, that the progressives and Democrats and blue dogs can all get behind, that will make us more likely to actually have more than just a razor thin margin in the Senate in 2022.
Do you think like on that note, like trying to combine the two things, do you think that would be a good way to get people more interested in local politics, right? Because right now, like, I mean, the question was like whether it would happen on a federal level, but on a local level, right? Like, do you think it'd be a good way to get people to grab people saying, hey, in your locality, we're pushing some sort of drug decriminalization or legalization type scheme, right? Like, I mean, you could see that, like, even in like to boost participation in federal elections, like within a state or a locality, right? You put something on about like $15 minimum wage, right? That'll get people out, right? Where they would not have otherwise voted, even bothered, they'll come up for that. So do you think until we get some sort of federal work, that would be a great way to try to get people like pay attention to what's going on in the local elections? Or is that attention like extremely temporary, right? That like it's not a permanent thing. Even if you get people looking at it, does it actually matter? Will they actually stick around?
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly, and like I don't think I have a satisfying answer. I think that the answer is like, unfortunately, we need a cult of personality. Unlike Trump, and preferably, preferably Obama like in nature, who is able to captivate people, because I can't think of a single person or issue that has gotten people out except for maybe like the Iraq war the anti-Iraq war protests, that has gotten more people out and engaged in politics than Obama. And I think that we need something like that, a cult of personality, damn near, to a Vosh for the people to get elected and basically lead all the people who just don't have time to consume their like local politics to like a better political opinion, as it were.
Are you saying I shouldn't live my life after Donald Trump? Because I gotta change my whole shit then.
Throw away the mag hats.
Fab.
Oh shit.
I think for as like a kind of like, I guess, an answer to that is I don't think that it would work, and because with those kinds of systems, voters have to be even more informed than they are now, in terms of like being able to, because in those types of voting systems, you're voting strategically. You're not voting like you're voting more strategically than sort of the lesser of two evils type of situation that we currently have. You have to vote in such strategic ways that gets so overly complicated and just goes over the heads of even the most political savvy people. And so in America, I don't think that would be a viable thing, even at the local level. I don't think it would be that viable, and certainly not on the federal level. It would be just abundantly a mess, because American voters are just so ill-informed, either because of their own lack of wanting to be informed or because of just how we inform voters about issues.
Well, I
It's
think it's
intentional. Really quick, if I gotta leave anyway. I actually have work at like 6. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm so irresponsible, but it's just piano. I'll be fine. But I was gonna say, one, I think that our political system intentionally obfuscates a lot of issues. The way they've phrased in California this year, like they had on the books this thing like an affirmative action bill, and they like labeled it as like an anti-discrimination bill. So then like people who were voting against it didn't understand what they were voting against. So by the time like people were like, well, yeah, I don't think people should be discriminating. But then it's like, well, affirmative action is a form of discrimination that's actually beneficial, largely to white women. But at the end of the day, it's beneficial. And so, so the idea is that like that if people understood what they were voting on in that case, and they would have voted differently. But they intentionally worded it differently. There was like so many different like ways they had verbalized it originally, and like they had fought until they got to the final one, which was like the most like confusing form of all. Like as I was reading it, and I'm particularly good at like spotting double negatives, I was struggling like, wait a minute, wait, what? Like, hold on. And then it finally like, okay, now I understand it. So then I voted properly. I was like, I know the vast majority of niggas weren't getting that. It's like, it was like literally a puzzle. like in the verbiage. So I think that's really, really terrible. Being informed is really, really difficult. And then like also like I play the piano, like even at my prime, like before coronavirus, I worked about 12 hours a week, right? Like that was like my full work schedule. So it was like I had all day and I read a lot. I recognize like people are working 9 to 5s. Like our work week is way too long. People don't have time to become informed. And when they get off of work, they want to spend time with their significant other. They're not trying to get home and read some long freaking study about like what the long-term ramifications are of Medicare for all. They just need the simple Facebook take, and that's all they can really do. And it sucks, but that's the world we live in. That's part of. I don't want to give you guys any ammunition, but that's part of the problem with capitalism. We work too long, and so then because it's all about productivity, and then as a result, we're not really informed about our electoral product. But capitalism is based, though. At the end of the day,
no, it's not. But to your point, though, like no, I think you're absolutely right. I think people are exhausted. I think people I think a lot of people don't try, period, right? And I think they could do a little bit better. But like still, like even like asking people to like raise their kids without any support, right? Like from the wider society, especially in our atomized civilization, right? Saying that like you've got to do it yourself, right? And there's something wrong if you ask for help. And then like not giving them a basic civics education to start off with, right? So they can know what's going on, because they have to learn. Because like lots of us just have to learn like what it is we're even trying to look at, right? It's like I went into college and I was started looking at the news and I had no idea what the fuck the people were talking about. I mean, I knew the basic functions of the government, but like I didn't know what was going on at all. I think someone put it best as like politics is like the longest running soap opera, right? Like there's a bunch of characters and storylines happening, right? And you jump into the middle of it and you're like fucking lost. So you just have to like keep at it before things start to come together. That's exactly what I did. But I had time to do it as a college student. That was a great time for me to jump in. But it's tough. It's a tough one. And again, like once you got children and a mortgage and all those other worries, and it's like, oh, on top of that, keep track of like the bullshit that's happening between Democrats and Republicans. Which one is actually to blame for like for the vaccine failure, right? Like among everything else, you have to figure out which one of these motherfuckers is actually to blame for this. And it's tough. No, it's absolutely tough.
Impossible. It's actually impossible. But and last thing I'm gonna say really quick before I head out, and I love all of you guys, is that like when you're dealing with like all of this nonsense, and you're in the middle of like seeing like insurrection, and Fox is over here praising these niggas, and like I remember Fox made a mention about like 5 Mexican countries one time, and it was like, what are you talking about? 5 Mexican countries? Like when you're dealing with all that stuff, it can be like completely unnerving. You need something to calm you down, and the thing that'll calm you down is Araya by Fnatic. It's a great song. It's on Spotify. You can listen to it. It's really peaceful, really tranquil. Really tranquil. It's, you know what I'm saying, made by your boy. If you think my takes are bad, listen to my music. Maybe you'll hear something that's awesome, or maybe you'll be surprised. I'm gonna go ahead and drop you guys a link.
Fnatic, link me your shit, man.
I'm going to. I'm linking it right now. It's in Prime Cage chat, okay? And y'all can check that out. And then you tell me if maybe I'm crazy. Maybe that's why my takes are bad. Maybe my music sucks, or maybe my takes.
Nah, music transcends all this bullshit.
Maybe if you made some dubstep, your takes would be better.
Mr. Fnatic, yo, he makes great music. Everyone, go check him out. The link is in chat. Check out his music. Put a little bit of money in this man's pocket. The guy knows what he's doing. So thanks so much, buddy. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, but I'm just kidding. I thought your song was pretty beautiful.
Thank you, man. I sincerely appreciate it.
I'm excited to listen, man. Yeah, I don't agree with everything you said, but yeah, I fuck with music. So we go.
Kanye West proves that you can have terrible takes but make amazing music.
I am not fucking kidding. I was about to bring up earlier what happened in 2006 Kanye West. Like that's what I was wanting to discuss. How did we get to where we are now?
Oh, if you want a really good, there's a really good slam poetry called Footnotes for Kanye. This girl just butters him up and just, it's good. You should. That's what I think of what happened.
I wanted to really quickly go back to what Prime was saying. That's exactly why I think we need a cult of personality on the left, and I also think that that's kind of why that Twitch has been gaining in popularity, because people I think are kind of instinctually searching for, they want their pastime, the thing that they do for a release from their 40, 50, 60 plus hour work weeks, to basically also be able to inform them. And so they gravitate towards people that they like. And then those people, like, for instance, here I might be, or somebody might be espousing some whatever ideologies, left wing, whatever. And then they kind of, and then they can, take those people's views essentially. Because that's just how it works. I think that's kind of like why Trump, he was able to speak to so many people on the right and really speak to them, unfortunately. So that's what we need.
My problem with your solution, I see your hand research. My problem with your solution is that, like, well, anyway, for any cult of personality, like, that personality can be silenced, right? I mean, like, if there's anyone on the left who's going to do literally anything important and worthwhile, they'd actually have to be challenging the powers that be, right? And there's a myriad of ways, right, that you can silence them. Yeah, really, sorry, I'm really distracted by someone happened in my DM. But yeah, so that's a problem, right? And then, but beyond that, right, if they lose credibility somehow, right, that's the end of the movement. If they end up, I don't know, if life happens, then, like, your movement is damaged, right? So, like, that's why I love, another thing I appreciate about Bernie is that he was the anti-cult personality. He made it clear it was us, not him, right? That he was actually trying to build a movement that would outlast him, right? Add to this, because he knows that, like, one man can't do it himself. Like, the fact that people keep relying on just the presidency to handle this, to, like, this has been a big thing that's in American politics. It hasn't always been like this, at least as I understand it. It hasn't always been like this, but now people just simply look to the president to handle it. Like, he will, like, our Sky Father will handle whatever it is, and we don't have to worry about it, right? We don't have to, especially on the Democratic side, right? Because this is a bigger issue on the Democratic side than the Republican. But, like, we don't have to pay attention to those local politics or the state politics or anything like that, right? Just take care of the top and something about the U.S. Supreme Court, and it'll work out. But Republicans, backed by a lot of fucking money, an organization, have understood, and I've talked about this so many times before, understood that, like, it's the lower levels that matter so much, right? Like, the rules of the game. If you build up an infrastructure, right, people in place, they can support you exactly when necessary, right? All those, like, rule changes at the bottom, like, for instance, rigging local elections by, like, making sure people who would vote against you can't vote at all, right? Like, that's part of it. All right, so, like, yes, it matters what happens in your state government and your local government. If you can't get to a fucking polling place, right? If all polling places are in your area were closed down, you only have one left, and it's only open for a few hours, well, then that's going to be a problem, right? So all those things matter, and Republicans get this. Democrats do not. They don't get it, and it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I don't really have a satisfying, like, answer to it. I think that it's almost like inherent. It feels like that people on the left are less engaged, like you were just saying, are less engaged with local elections, and they just don't give a fuck. Whereas people on the right are much more engaged with who their school board member is and these smaller elections that really matter to the impact of the people actually voting, for in terms of the impact on the places that they live. Yeah, and I don't know how we change that. Which is why I think I'm almost like selling out to the idea of, well, we need somebody like, and here was a question I wanted to ask you, Prime, was, do you think that Bernie's movement will actually outlast Bernie? Because I think it's kind of fair to say that Bernie's kind of done. He can't run in 2024, and so, like, Bernie as a presidential candidate, that's not really that might be off the table.
Oh,
Do you
that's
think his
definitely off the
movement will
table.
outlast
No,
it?
he's super
Yeah.
old. He's super fucking old. He's not even part of the boomer generation. He's part of the he's part of the silent generation.
generation.
Like seriously. Yeah, he's not even he's
Wait,
like
is he really that fucking old?
Yeah.
He's
yeah.
the great generation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, silent,
Oh my
yeah. So,
God.
Yeah.
it's
That's
tough.
insane.
But
So do you think
to say that
fuck?
that relies on you and me, right? It relies on all of us. That question is still up for grabs. Like, will he actually do it? I don't know.
Or
I
could he
think there's a good
potentially have
chance of it. I
project?
think because like he channeled the energy at like Occupy Wall Street that came before like all this, right? He channeled the energy of BLM that happened during the Barack Obama's term. That's where that started, right? So he channeled all that. So I think it's most definitely a possibility. I think what he's trying to do is put in some organizational structures in place because that's the thing that'll last, right? Not just his voice, right? But you put organizations that can provide support, provide like I don't know, intelligence, I don't know, whatever, right? To the movement. Yeah, that'll last. Vicer, go ahead.
So I I'm gonna volunteer for my local election. It's for my mayor. He's Republican, but like this dude has been a stalwart progressive throughout this whole pandemic. And right now he's like the only dude that I can work with. There's no Democrat basically running for mayor. And it's like psycho, but like he helped organize like our Black Lives March in McKinney, like where I live. And he didn't help organize it. He helped the police like cordon off the section where we could march and stuff. So I just think it starts with a little bit of destigmatization. I'm tired, but I think it just yes, I think it just starts there a little bit. Like I've gotten chastised. People are like, oh, "You're gonna go like support a Republican," but it's like he's rubber stamping. I don't know. He's smart about running for that. It's more pragmatic for him to run as that to try to get his progress. Like he's supporting like decriminalization. I've talked to him about that before. Like he's a super open dude. So I think it just it just depends. Like he's not a Nazi. He's basically a Democrat, but he's got to run on the Republican ticket here. And
They have
that's
a word
where
for that. It's called a rhino.
So
yeah. So it's like,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna help him out from the left. That's my only thing that I can do right now locally. But that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go door to door and see what I can do.
And thank you for that. That's a good way to end this. All right, guys, we'll come back to Monday for the reverie. It'll be a lot of fun. That'd be great. Oh, also exclamation point YouTube in chat for the YouTube that we're doing or pushing. We're gonna be putting stuff there. We'll be putting all this there. So check that out. Come back on Monday for the reverie, and of course another open panel, another week of open panels. It'll be great. So off to our friend Sansol. Who's
Can I say something before we go?
it's literally the raid has already started. But anyway, be kind to Sansol. He's a great guy. All right, bye.